Chapter 2855. Spirit? The whole process was incredibly weird and amazing. Hansen watched Sky Vine Radish's flesh and bones being rebuilt bit by bit. After a while the new Sky Vine Radish was done. Compared to the shell before, the Sky Vine Radish with a god personality had a massively frightening life force. That powerful feeling was like when Hansen had first encountered King Jun. Although King Jun had given him this feeling, it was rather different. Huh? God looked at the reborn Sky Vine Radish with surprise. It seemed as if he had discovered something quite interesting about it. Hansen turned and asked, "What is it?" "Sky Vine Radish seems to have some sort of problem," God said with a frown. He had been looking at Sky Vine Radish's body. "What is it?" Hansen's heart jumped. He seemed to have thought of something. Inside his body, his spirit is gone. God stared at the reborn Sky Vine Radish. He sounded weird as he spoke. "Spirit?" Hansen asked. "Are you referring to the same sort of spirits that the 9 Defense Palace Xenogeniacs are also missing?" God nodded. "Yes, it's the same. Previously, I told you that the spirit is an uncertain part of a creature's gene. That description is not so accurate. In fact, I do not know how to describe what this is because the existence of a spirit is very abstract. Let me give you an example," God said. "A father and mother determine genetic genes. Even if the father and mother end up having twins, the genes of the two babies are not the same. As they grow up, their personalities and bodies develop and mature differently. That is the result of one's spirit." Hansen hesitated and said, "The genes of a twin are different. That is normal, right?" He did not understand what a spirit was. God thought for a moment and said, "Perhaps that example was not appropriate. You should know gene-duplicated creatures, right? In theory, gene-duplicated creatures should be the same as the original gene creature. They would have the same personality. In fact, if you let those gene-duplicated creatures grow freely and quickly, their shapes and bodies have different features. Even their personalities would. That depends on the spirit." Upon hearing that, Hansen looked like he understood it, but he did not understand it. This was not a question that could be answered through words. There were no standard words to describe it. God knew full well that Hansen was still failing to understand. He pointed at the newly reborn Sky Vine Radish and said, "Just like Sky Vine Radish, the reborn Sky Vine Radish should have the same spirit as before. That means this reborn Sky Vine Radish is a continuous life hailing from the previous Sky Vine Radish. But now, the reborn Sky Vine Radish has no spirit. That means he is just a replica of Sky Vine Radish's genes. The body is the same, but in some way, he is not the same Sky Vine Radish as before." "Is there a difference?" Hansen seemed to understand a little. His heart understood something. "To you, the biggest difference should be the fact that he will not remember you were the one that murdered him before his rebirth here," God said. "Even if he found out, he would not care. Without the last spirit, he will not know what happened to Sky Vine Radish in the past and associate events of the previous Sky Vine Radish with himself. He will not care." When Hansen heard that, he was happy. That means not having a spirit is good. Does that mean he will not have a spirit ever again? What kind of God is one without a spirit? A creature should always have a spirit, but the spirit should not be the same as before. So the spirit is different from the last one. God looked at Sky Vine Radish as he spoke. By now, the green light on the altar was gone. Sky Vine Radish had finished being reborn. He was like a god standing upon the altar. He was slowly opening his eyes. Hansen thought, even if Sky Vine Radish does not remember the past, he would not forgive some creature for entering his temple so boldly. Unexpectedly, Sky Vine Radish's vision went right past Hansen and landed on God. Hansen opened his mouth. He could not believe that had happened. Sky Vine Radish had a giant-like body, yet he suddenly jumped better than a rabbit could. His giant body landed on the floor with outstretched hands. He was kneeling in profuse worship. He placed his head on the floor as he shivered and shook. Hansen was shocked. Although he thought God was stronger than Sky Vine Radish, he did not expect that only a glimpse of God was enough to make him behave so fearfully. He was more frightened than a mouse encountering a cat. At least if a mouse saw a cat, it could run. Now Sky Vine Radish appeared as such. He could not even run. He had to kneel on the ground shaking. "Let's go." It is almost time. There are a few more matches I would like to watch. God ignored Skyvine Radish. He stretched and walked out of the temple. Hansun looked at the kneeling Skyvine Radish, who did not dare raise his head. He left the Skyvine Radish temple with God. After exiting the temple, Hansun looked back a few times. While he was still able to see the temple, he saw that Skyvine Radish was still scared and unable to move. He did not get up. When he walked the last stone step, Hansun's environment changed. He was back inside Nine Defense Palace. I did what you wanted me to do. In the next round, you must win the fight. I have faith in you. God smiled at Hansun as he spoke. Yes, I have faith in myself too. Hansun rubbed his nose. God went back to the garden. Hansun stayed where he was, using the excuse that he was going to kill more Xenogeneics. After watching God leave, Hansun looked into his sea of soul. He examined Skyvine Radish's God spirit. Hansun thought, does this mean God spirits are the spirits God mentioned? Because the God spirit was taken, Skyvine Radish spawned with no God spirit. So will there be a new spirit getting born? In that case, are beast souls their spirits? Is it just the spirits of a low-level creature? But hang on. God said the Xenogeneics in Nine Defense Palace had no spirits. Where did their spirits go? How did the kings of the Extreme King take their souls away? If beast souls really are their spirits, how are humans able to kill Xenogeneics and take their spirits away? Even the God spirits were pulled away. Hansun thought of a lot. He had the willies just thinking about it. Hansun felt as if he had a hold on something. But he had too little information to figure it all out. It was like he had seen a shadow through paper, but he could not see the figure. It looks like everything must wait until I become true God class. I need to get into the Geno Hall to figure out everything. Hansun sighed. He shelved his thoughts on the matter. He knew overthinking was not good for him. Increasing his power was the top priority. I wonder what power this Skyvine Radish Godlance has. Hansun tried putting the Sky Radish Vine Godlance inside his Sea of Soul, and it worked. The lance was like a beast soul. Hansun put it in his Sea of Soul. As Hansun soon as thought of it, the Skyvine Radish God lance appeared in his hands. So can God personality armaments be placed inside the Sea of Soul? Hansun's expression looked complicated. 1. Chapter 2856. Demon Alpha holding the Skyvine Radish God lance. Hansun opened the door of the next palace. He saw a Xenogeneic inside that looked like a lion. He lifted the Skyvine Radish God lance and struck it. It was a butterfly-class Xenogeneic. Because it was not Hansun's opponent anymore, he skipped it and did not bother killing it. Hansun was now butterfly class. Killing it would have been a trivial task. The most important thing was that Hansun wanted to use it to test out the Skyvine Radish Godlance's power. Hansun was pretty suspicious about the Skyvine Radish Godlance. He thought it might work like the Phoenix Feather, which did not do anything to ordinary creatures and only dealt damage to gods. The Skyvine Radish Godlance shone with a green light. It pierced through the Xenogeneic's chest. Even Hansun was shocked. The god personality armaments were able to be used on ordinary creatures. Hansun pulled back his Skyvine Radish Godlance. He did not see god blood come out. He saw saplings growing out of the wound. They grew like mad. In the blink of an eye, they had weaved together like an old vine to wrap up the Xenogeneic's entire body. It was like a giant vine egg. The vine egg died quickly. When the old vine had wilted and detached itself from the creature, the Xenogeneic no longer had a life force. It had become a dried-up husk. Xenogeneic butterfly hunted. God power lion. Deified Xenogeneic gene found. Upon seeing this, Hansun was a bit unnerved. A butterfly-class creature had been killed with one hit by the Skyvine Radish Godlance. The old vines that grew from the wound had sucked the creature's life dry. That was more chilling than using a knife to kill it. Hansun thought about the prospect of old vines growing out of his own body. It gave him goosebump. He shuddered at the thought. The power of this lance is as good as the shield of the Medusa's gaze. With my power now, I should be able to use the shield and charming god Jian. I also have Purgatory Heaven, a 9-spin destiny mirror, and Siren Bottle. Even if I don't use Super God Spirit mode, I should be able to battle a true God class elite. Han Sun had never fought a true God-class elite before. He was not sure. 3. The 9-spin Destiny Mirror and Siren Bottle do not seem to have attacking powers. They are unique treasures, and Little Angel has Purgatory Heaven. I can only use the Shield of the Medusa's Gaze and Charming God Jian. Maybe I can use the Charming God Jian. Right now, I won't be consumed by that weapon's power. Han Sun noticed he had amassed quite the trove of treasures. Although quite a few of them had unique powers, only a few of the treasures could not be used in combat. Of course, most of those items had been collected when Han Sun was Han Senator, so he did not plan on using them in the god fight. If luck is on my side, one Sky Vine Radish God Lance should be enough to get me into the top 100. Han Sun kept stroking the Sky Radish God Lance. He really liked it. Han Sun returned to the garden. God was sitting on a chair, watching the god fights. You came back just in time. This should be the best match so far. Come and watch it. God smiled at Han Sun as he spoke. Han Sun looked at the Geno God List space battleground. He saw there was an unfamiliar dragon in space. Although he did not know anything about the beast, he could tell it was grossly frightening. Han Sun looked at the match list. He saw the fighters were Dragon 1 and Demon Alpha. That is not the Dragon 1 I know. That must be the Dragon 1 from the previous generation. I suppose it is the Dragon 1 that is around the same age as Sky Palace leader. I wonder what sort of deified it is. Han Sun looked at the space battleground, but he could not see Demon Alpha. Han Sun was far more interested in Demon Alpha. That was perhaps because the demons seemed to have a connection with the Shura. Han Sun thought Demon Alpha was the first of the Shuras to enter the Geno universe. It has only been 100 years, yet this dragon has gone from being primitive to true god. God said. He must have used a dragon blood skill. Otherwise, that feat would have been impossible. Han Sun did not understand, so he asked, what blood skill? God replied, the dragons have one of the most talented Geno arts. When a dragon grows old, they can put their gene blood power into another dragon's body. Thus, the other dragon's genes grow very fast. Many races have a similar Geno art, but to do it very well, only the dragons can do that. The Buddha learned this from the dragons. Through their own modifications, they composed a Geno art that was very similar. It is much more annoying to use than a dragon blood skill, and the effects are not as good as this blood skill. True God Class Dragon? Is Demon Alpha going to lose? Han Sun was confused. He looked at God as he spoke. Because God said the fight would be an amazing one if Demon Alpha were surely going to lose. What would be so amazing about that? Han Sun did not believe Demon Alpha could fight a true God-class Dragon 1. After all, the demons were a younger race. Their ranks were not too high among the higher races. It was hard to believe the demons would have a true God-class elite in their ranks. In fact, many creatures were thinking the same thing. No one believed Demon Alpha could defeat Dragon 1. After all, dragons had the recognition of being the world's bravest. When they reached true God class, their power was unimaginably strong. They were able to resist 99.9% of an elemental attack. It was like they had unbreakable bodies. Mr. Palace Leader, if Dragon 1 wins 2 more times, you can continue the Geno being scroll fights. I do not know who will be the dead deer. A woman smiled at Sky Palace Leader. Back during the Geno being scroll fight, Sky Palace Leader suppressed Dragon 1 and earned the top King class rank. Dragon 1 was second. Sky Palace Leader laughed. He lost to me once. He will never be able to beat me again. No matter how many times he fights me, the results will always be the same. Besides, he needs to beat Demon Alpha. The demons are not powerful yet, the woman casually said. How could Demon Alpha beat Dragon 1, who is a true god class? It is difficult to say, Sky Palace Leader said. There are problems with the history of the demons. Their sky demon power has casual powers. You cannot underestimate this race. Plus, the demons have been a high race for a while now. Unfortunately, no one knows what Demon Alpha's power is like. Not even Sky Palace has that sort of information. You can tell this Demon Alpha is unique. The woman did not agree with what Sky Palace Leader was saying. They are merely pretending to be mysterious. Even if Demon Alpha has talents and endurance, there is nothing they can do without resources. With the small number of resources the demons have, I would be surprised if they had a butterfly in their midst. Either way, they will not have a true god class unless they are like Dragon One and have a scary senior pass in their blood genes. Otherwise, how else could he become a true god? How could he hope to fight Dragon One? While they were talking, a shadow entered the space battleground. That shadow was completely dark. It was like a humanoid shadow walking through space, but with a body that did not look real. Han Sen gathered up power. He wanted to see through the shadow and see what the demon Alpha looked like, but all he could see was darkness. He could not see what demon Alpha looked like. Chapter 2857. 1/cuts the cause. Dragon One looked at demon Alpha like a king looking down on peasants. Behind his back were a pair of gold wings, but it did not look as if he was going to do anything. Demon Alpha, I have heard that the demons are masters of causal powers, Dragon One coldly said while standing still. Show me what you can do. Demon Alpha was completely cloaked in shadows. One could not see his face. He also did not respond to Dragon One. He raised his right hand and presented a knife. He slashed toward Dragon One, who was in space. Han Sen had been looking at Demon Alpha. He saw him swing his knife, but no power was going with it. It was like he had randomly swung his hand. It really is the Asura power. Although Han Sen had not practiced the Asura Sutra, he had studied it for a long time. He was no stranger to its abilities. Demon Alpha's palm did not have any power shockwaves. Clearly, that was the max level of the Asura Sutra. 1/cut the cause. Catcha. Dragon One's neck made a weird sound. Everyone looked at his neck. There was a small mark on his gold scales. It was as thin as a hair, but it was unable to break through the dragon's scales. Causal powers really are powerful. It made me unable to react. That is not bad. Dragon One stared at Demon Alpha and nodded. While he was talking, his scales healed themselves. The knife mark slowly faded. Before long, no mark remained. In Sky Palace, the woman was shocked. She asked, "Can Demon Alpha's power leave a mark on Dragon One's scales? Did he really become true god class?" "I bet you there's a 90% chance he did." Sky Palace leader looked at Demon Alpha with interest. "I did not expect Demon Alpha had a trick like that up his sleeve. But it is futile even if he is a true god," the woman said. "They are both true gods, and Dragon One's dragon god body is impervious to most powers. Demon Alpha cannot damage Dragon One. He is going to lose this time. His dragon god body is powerful, but causal powers are very mysterious too. It is really hard to determine who is going to win and who is going to lose." Sky Palace leader clearly did not approve of the woman's thoughts. At the same time, the whole universe was watching the fight. They were shocked by Demon Alpha's performance. The elites knew Dragon One was already true god class. Since Demon Alpha had been able to leave a mark on the dragon scales, there was a 90% chance that he was true god class. I cannot believe that inside a small race like the demons there is a true god class elite. Bai King looked at Demon Alpha with interest. "My king, after this fight, should we go to the demons, take him, and have him work for us?" An extreme king elder suggested. "Let's wait and see what happens in this fight first," Bai King coldly said. This Demon Alpha is not a simple character. On the space battleground, Dragon One saw Demon Alpha had not struck again. He asked, "Why don't you continue? If I attack again you will be dead. The demons do not want to be an enemy of the dragons. I advise you to quit now." Demon Alpha's voice was empty. There was no emotion to discern. He sounded like electricity, yet what he said made every creature in the universe think he was crazy. This Demon Alpha is crazy. He did not even break Dragon One's scales. Does he have what it takes to say that? I bet he has never beaten an opponent outside of his family. That is why he is so insane and ignorant. How dare he talk like that in front of the world's bravest dragon? That Demon Alpha has a death wish. Every race was talking about it. Compared to the demon, they all thought Dragon One was stronger. Ha, ha, ha. The dragons do not have cowards that are afraid to die. I will be standing here. If you can kill me, I can assure you that the demons will not become an enemy of my people. From now on, the dragons will obey the demons. Dragon One was standing in space laughing. Demon Alpha did not say anything. He raised his hand and presented it like a knife. Then he slashed toward Dragon 1 again. Dragon 1 looked dim. He stared at Demon Alpha's arm. His body uncontrollably activated substance chains. The scary golden air became many golden god dragons around him. He was like an old dragon god that was landing. Everyone's heart almost jumped out of their chests. Although no one thought Demon Alpha could actually cut through Dragon 1's body. If Dragon 1 was treating this seriously, it made the audience feel heavy with pressure. Demon Alpha's hand was still waving slowly. It did not look as if there was any power in it. It was like he was just playing. It made it hard for people to believe that his powerless palm could kill a true god-class dragon. Catcha! Suddenly gold dragon blood was spilled. The sky full of gold dragon power broke. Dragon 1's head was flying. It left his body to soar through the sky, leaving gold blood in its wake. Every race and creature that watched this fight was petrified. The whole universe went silent. One slash cut a dragon's head off. And it was the true god-class Dragon 1. That power was hard to believe. Am I seeing this correctly? Is Dragon 1 of the dragons? Did his head just get cut off? Very scary sky demon power. Very scary Demon Alpha. From now on, I am afraid the demons will become the highest race of all. Really? Just his palm cut off the dragon's head. After a long time of silence, everyone in every race was shocked. In these Geno God List fights, there have been so many unexpected events, Sky Palace leader said with a sigh. Gold Demon Alpha $, Lulai. The big universe has too many scary elites. This world is a big world. The woman looked at Demon Alpha. A big world means a chaotic world. The good days have passed. After these Geno God List fights, I am afraid this universe will be flipping the sky and ground. Sky Palace leader did not get excited. He presented a wry smile and shook his head. I do not understand how Demon Alpha did that, the woman said while looking at Sky Palace leader. Sky Palace leader was silent a moment before saying, considering causal powers in the past and the results today, no matter how strong Dragon 1 is, he could not block the cause he had before. The woman's face changed as she asked, are you saying that Demon Alpha's power can slash into the past? Does that mean he has the same power as that person from Sacred? No, that is not the same. That person in Sacred could twist time and space. Demon Alpha's power focuses on cause. His hand must have the cause of yesterday, so he can slash yesterday. If there is no cause from yesterday, he cannot use his power. Sky Palace leader paused and said, even though the cause power is so strong, killing Dragon 1 is not so easy. While he was speaking on the space battleground, the gold dragon blood that was everywhere went backward. The headless Dragon 1 lifted his hand in space. The head that had been chopped off flew back into his hands. Dragon 1 placed the head atop the exposed neck and pressed it down. The head was back in place, and the wound on the neck was instantly healed. Chapter 2858. Dragon Race Weapon. The dragon's bodies make people really jealous. I told you so. How could Dragon 1 be killed so easily? He really is the world's bravest. How can he still live? Causal powers are mysterious. Even if I watched it, I could not block it. But if you wish to kill me, Dragon 1, that alone will not be enough. Dragon 1 opened his eyes. He looked at Demon Alpha and said, I do confess that you have what it takes to fight me. It has been a long time since I last had a good fight. After that, Dragon 1 pulled out something. It was a 2-foot-long golden rod. It was flat with a rectangular shape. It looked like a ruler. On top of it were numerous dragon tattoos. They were beautiful and mysterious. The woman recognized the gold dragon ruler. The dragon race weapon Blood Dragon Ruler is in his hands. It looks like Dragon 1 is the leader of the dragons. Sky Palace leader seemed to have expected this. The dragons spent a lot on Dragon 1 in this generation. He became true god in 100 years, and will soon be the leader of the dragons. With the help of the Blood Dragon Ruler race weapon, the chances of his victory increase, the woman said. Although Demon Alpha is strong, the demons became a high race not too long ago. I do not think the demons have a race weapon to challenge it. Maybe not. Sky Palace leader's response meant nothing. Roar. Dragon 1 was holding his blood dragon ruler as he roared toward the sky. The blood dragon ruler shone with gold. It became many blood dragon shadows. There were 8 different shapes of scary dragon shadows surrounding Dragon 1. Every dragon shadow was like a cruel beast that could destroy the world. They released a scary presence. It was like a random bite could swallow the whole universe and every galaxy. In the next moment, the 8 dragon shadows roared in tandem with Dragon 1. They all raced into Dragon 1's body. Pang! The wings on Dragon 1's back flapped. His body rapidly started to expand. The gold light on his body was pretty, but his back kept flaring up with horrendously large bone spikes. His parted lips displayed menacing fangs. The horns on his head were scary. His draconic wings kept expanding. Another dragon head appeared on the side of his shoulder. Soon there was another one and another one. Many weird dragon heads kept popping up. Within the space of a moment, Dragon 1 had become a 9-headed big gold dragon. It was like a scary beast that could claim the world. The 9 heads stared down at Demon Alpha. Very scary suppression. I can feel how powerful it is by just seeing it. Demon Alpha is facing Dragon 1. How much pressure must he be facing? Although Han Sun was just watching the fight, the 9-headed gold giant Dragon 1 was releasing a pressure that made it difficult for him to breathe. He felt as if he was going to suffocate. God looked at the 9-headed gold giant dragon and said, "The dragons are very interesting. They can put their own gene, blood, and spirit into a race weapon. This kind of sacrifice is something that cannot be accomplished by many races in this universe. Aren't these dragon shadows the power of the race weapon?" Han Sun asked with shock. One of the dragon shadows is the soul of the dragon's race weapon. If it was an ordinary treasure, even the dragons could not do it regardless of how much they wanted to. Let's not say the treasure itself can take that much power. Matching the elements is an issue too. After all, even if they are dragons, their elements can be completely different. There are 7 different elemental gene dragon true gods. It is hard for them to put their own blood power into the same treasure. But race weapons can completely sort out such a problem. As long as they are dragons, their power will be absorbed by the dragon race weapon. That was how Blood Dragon Ruler, which was formed from the genes of 7 true gods, was made. God paused a moment and said, "With this race weapon, it is like fighting 9 true god dragons together. Even the top elites of the 3 highest races would probably have to end up dodging it if they had to use their power to fight it." God's face looked excited as he spoke. If the dragon race weapon can continue to be passed on to each generation, then Dragon 1 will be putting his own gene, blood, and spirit into it. In the future, if another dragon wants to do it when it reaches 100 or 1,000 dragons, can you imagine how powerful it would become? Claiming the entire universe would not be difficult. It is not easy to have 100 or 1,000 dragons. That would take a long time. Thus far, the dragons have only managed to put the power of 7 true gods into it. If you want 100 dragons or 1,000 dragons, God only knows how many billions of years we would have to wait. Han Sun was not interested in these calculations. After all, human lives were short. He would never live to see that day. God laughed and said, "God is immortal. 1 billion years to God is just a second. It is worth the wait." Han Sun stopped talking. Since he was not immortal, these kinds of discussions with God hurt his feelings. Boom! One of the 9-headed gold heads spat out a flame that scorched the sky. It covered most of space. Demon Alpha's black shadow flickered. He exited the area where the flame hit. It looked like the fire was burning the sky. He quickly slashed downward with his hands. Suddenly, one of the 9-headed gold giant dragon head's eyes weirdly flashed. It was as if Demon Alpha's body was imprisoned. His arms were raised. He could no longer move. Fire element and space element power? Han Sun was in shock. After Dragon 1 combined with the Blood Dragon Ruler, it meant he combined with the Dragon Soul and 7 true God-class dragon power, God said. With his gold dragon body, there are 9 true God powers. Not many creatures in this universe can fight against him now. I cannot wait to see 100 dragons gathering up. What a shame. 2 more dragon heads instantly appeared to accompany the 9-headed gold dragon's form. One of them had laser eyes, and the other spat out black dragon breath. They all attacked the frozen demon Alpha. Every creature that watched the fight was shocked by Dragon One's power. They thought Demon Alpha was going to die. Thunder and dragon breath tangled together. Everything was being destroyed by those two scary powers. Demon Alpha's shadow was going to melt. The darkness became lighter and lighter. Inside the darkness, Demon Alpha's body was becoming clearer to see. When the shadow was whittled down to only a thin layer, people could see more of Demon Alpha. Hansen kept his eyes focused on Demon Alpha. Now his eyes were open wide. Inside the shadow, he saw a purple-haired, purple-eyed demon woman. Although he could not see her entire face, this demon woman gave Hansen the feeling he used to know her. She was very familiar. Pang! The thunder and dragon breath tangled together. The final layer was being faded away. Demon Alpha's face was finally revealed. Hansen could finally see Demon Alpha's face. When he saw her, his body shook. He was in complete disbelief. Demon Alpha's face looked exactly the same as Zero's when she was in Shura mode. Even her body was the same. But Zero looked like a young lady, and Demon Alpha looked mature and cold. Are Demon Alpha and Zero twins? Hansen was frozen. Chapter 2859. Demon coming down to earth. Azura and Hansen's mother had some kind of entwined fate that they could not be freed from. The Luo family had the Shura's falsified Sky Sutra, which made the Luo family and Shura's Jade Shura fall into a generation of loving and killing. During Luo Land's generation, Hansen's mother wanted to prevent their heirs from falling into the same cycle. Thus, they hid their names in the hopes that Hansen could lead a normal life. Unfortunately, it did not work. Hansen received the Azura Sutra by accident. He had also found Zero, who had a strong connection with the Shura. The little sister, Han Yen, practiced the Luo family's falsified Sky Sutra. Ever since then, Hansen's family and the Shura, or the Azura king who created the Shura, had a fate that always caused them to be coiled around each other in some capacity. After Hansen entered the Geno universe, he believed the demons might have been connected to the Shura, but he lacked proof for the allegation. Now Demon Alpha looked exactly like Zero. Hansen's head was filled with a bevy of thoughts. He was not so sure what he was thinking. That was only for a moment. After Demon Alpha's shadow was expunged, scary thunder and dragon breath came together to annihilate her body. Demon Alpha had been tied up in the same spot all that time, but she was finally able to move a little. One of her hands was forcing through to break the power that bound her. She summoned a little knife. It was less than a foot long. As she held it in her jade hand, the gray knife looked like a dried bone. The moment Demon Alpha clutched the little dry bone knife, it was like her arm had some sort of weird power. It was able to make her power move inside that trapped space. The little dry bone knife flashed in front of Demon Alpha. In the next moment, the nine-headed gold, giant dragon head was spilling dragon blood. It flew into space. The big dragon head had been cut off, forcing the bindings on her to be dropped. Demon Alpha's body flashed like a ghost. The thunder and dragon breath landed next to her. It kept exploding in space, blowing up all the planets around. Demon Alpha's shadow recovered. She was once again cloaked in darkness, but one could still see the little dry bone knife. It was not affected by the darkness. Before the creatures that were watching the fight reacted, Demon Alpha's body was already on the move. She swung the little dry bone knife in her hands. The small knife, which was less than a foot long, drew a curve in space that did not look particularly eye-catching. It seemed like a random swing. It was not much stronger than as if she had been drawing. In space, underneath this drawing, the gold nine-headed dragon's fire element dragon head was cut off. Dragon blood came spewing out of the severed neck like lava. The rest of the 7 heads painfully roared. Boom! The big dragon's thunder head and soul head spit out scary power, at the same time toward Demon Alpha. The thunder head had just opened its eyes. Before it spat out thunder, an invisible slash cut off its head. Under the flickering starlight, Demon Alpha's shadow-like body flashed. The dry bone knife was thrust out again. Many dragon heads were flying through space. Dragon blood was coming down like heavy rain everywhere. Thunderhead, cold head, crazy dragon head. All these scary dragon heads were like chickens or dogs being cut up. The dragon blood dyed the whole of space with a gold color. All the creatures looked at the demon looking ghost-looking shadow. They were frozen. The lightly swaying little dry bone knife, painful dragon bones, flying dragon heads spilling blood. All the creatures gazed upon the crazy scene. They were scared. Their fear could not be described. The crazy knife and cold starlight mingled with the gold dragon blood being sprayed out. It looked quite strange. The big, invincible 9-headed gold dragon suddenly had 8 of its head cut off. It had not even been given a moment to fight back. The invincible dragon god body was like paper. It did not even see the knife lights or weapons that were landing on it. It led to all the dragon heads flying through space with blood. Even Han Sun, who knew a lot about Azura Sutra, and was not from a normal race, had a scalp that felt numb. His entire body flared with goosebumps. Azura power was practiced to this level by Demon Alpha. It was almost invincible. As long as the opponent had some cause, it could not avoid her attacks. Catcha! The Reaper's scythe-looking dry bone knife went across space. The 9-headed gold dragon's final head was split in half, along with its giant gold dragon body. The whole universe was silent. The gold blood spread through space. It was like a golden ocean. The dragon's head, body, and blood were shaking in space. The dragon tried to regenerate and become the 9-headed gold big dragon again. Demon Alpha did not move. She stood in space. She raised the little dry bone knife and started to swing it. She looked like a reaper as she slashed everything. All the dragon heads were cut in half before they could combine with the body, and the dragon's body was cut into pieces. The heads were angry. They roared. In the next second, they were being cut open. How dare you kill the dragon heads? My race will persist to avenge this. In the dragon realm, many dragons were roaring, which shook the sky. Dragon 1 was the leader of that generation of dragons. He was a scary being that was able to become a true god. He was the only true god of the dragons. He would soon become the leader of the dragons. If he was killed on the space battlegrounds, the dragons would suffer a major loss. It would take them hundreds of thousands of years to recover. As much as they let out their roars, Demon Alpha did not hear a single one. Even if she did hear them, it was unlikely that she cared. The little dry bone knife kept swinging, moaning, roaring, fear, scared, hopeless. Whatever emotion was displayed did not stop the hand wielding the little dry bone knife. Before, when the gold 9-headed dragon's power had almost destroyed her body, Demon Alpha already wanted to kill him. Why would she put her knife away now? A knife slashed Dragon 1's head. Its blood-curdling cries were heard throughout space. This was a day that would be remembered. The gold 9-headed dragon had been chopped to pieces. Space was dyed gold. A hopeless dragon moan echoed through the universe. Dragon 1's shadow was in space, but the shadow instantly turned to dust. It scattered away with the sky full of gold dragon blood. Every dragon's body shook. They all cried bloody tears. They could not believe Dragon 1 had been killed in space like that. He was the first true god-class creature that had been killed in the Geno-godless fight. I am Demon Alpha. Whoever offends the demon will be slashed. Demon Alpha's cold voice echoed through space. From this day on, every creature in the universe was going to remember that name and sentence. Chapter 2860, Deep Abyss Night. I can't believe this. Dragon 1 was killed like that. The dragon? It is game over. The woman's voice sounded extremely weird. Although no one could see Demon Alpha's body in space, her vision was still scouring that portion of the empty. It was like a body that looked like a demon, and a ghost was in front of the woman. Sky Palace leader sighed and said, "Success is brave, but there is also bravery in failure. I hope the dragons will be able to overcome this loss. I hope they do not sink in the river of time." The dragons used all their power to produce this latest dragon leader, but he was easily cut up like that in space. The dragons are in danger. The woman shook her head with a wry smile. Who is this Demon Alpha anyway? She has such a scary power. With the resources the demons have, there is no way they could have made someone like that. This era is messed up. Sky Palace leader did not answer her. He looked into space, which was far away. Interesting. Very interesting. Although I could not see 100 dragons coming out together, it was still amazing. God held his hands and laughed. He looked satisfied. Do you know this Demon Alpha? How could she possess such scary powers? Hansen asked. God shook his head. Did I not tell you that God does not know everything? I am just like you. I only know what I see. I have never seen Demon Alpha before, so I do not know anything about her. There is one thing I know for sure. What is that? Hansen asked. In her hands, that little dry bone knife was a god personality armament, God said with certainty. When Hansen heard that, his expression changed. He thought, if Demon Alpha really is Azura, then Ancient Devil, and the Azura really did summon a dying god. Was that a god spirit? With their power back then, how were they able to kill the god spirit? Even though the god spirit was heavily injured, it would have still been impossible. Their powers were on vastly different scales. There could have been no chance. Even God hides, so why would it let them kill him? They still did not have the power to kill a god spirit. Does it mean that after Azura went to the universe, he killed the god spirit and got the god personality armament? Hansen could not guess the truth either, but he was really bothered by Demon Alpha looking just like Zero. It looks like I need to find a chance to talk to Ancient Devil and Yasha again about what Azura really was. What god spirit's god personality armament is that? Hansen asked. There are too many gods, and I do not remember all of them, God said after touching his nose. Are there really that many gods? Hansen asked with confusion. There are not many real gods, God said. After saying that, he did not say any more. Demon Alpha's fight shocked the whole universe. The demons were famous among the higher races. Now, they had become the most famous in the whole universe. Everyone knew the demons would rank up soon. It only depended on if Demon Alpha was daring enough to trigger the lantern fight. With Demon Alpha's power, the demons could enter the top 10 races without any trouble. The factions with a similar power to Demon Alpha were feeling as if they were facing a crisis. They thought Demon Alpha might destroy their race at any moment, or she might take their territory in xenogenic space and pillage and plunder them for the demons. Some races saw the potential of an alliance. Many had already sent messengers to try and befriend the demons. All this did not really have a connection to Han Senator after he became Butterfly class. There were not enough resources to support his ascension to true God. He watched other fights alongside God. Aside from the battle between Demon Alpha and Dragon One, there weren't any more interesting battles. All the elites just fought to a point where a winner could be determined. Few dared to lose their lives in combat there. What happened to Dragon One made every elite a whole lot more cautious. They would not underestimate any opponent they encountered. Golden Growler was still winning like an invincible foe. The scary power he wielded had been agreed by most as the greatest. Most believed it was highly likely that Golden Growler would win the tournament. They thought he was even greater than Demon Alpha. Sky Palace leader and the very high leader did not need to be described. They just talked their enemies out of the way. One could not really tell how strong they were. Hansen cared about a guy called Lu Lai, who used his body to become a butterfly-class xenogeniac. Most importantly, Hansen found there was something familiar about him. Is he a member of Blood Legion? Hansen wondered. This Lu Lai is interesting, God said with a smile. Why is he interesting? Hansen asked. He is better than you think, God casually replied. He is a real human. Is he human? In that case, what are you going to do? Hansen forced his question to sound nonchalant, but he really wanted to know what God would do if he found out about another human. I do not plan on doing anything yet. I will keep watching the matches and wait for interesting spirits to fight each other. God's answer surprised him. Hansen thought humans were taboo for the universe. God found out Lu Lai was a human, so he wagered he would do something. Do not look at me like that. I am a god and not a crazy dog. Do you think I will bite whatever I see? God laughed. Hansen looked at God and said, I thought you treated humans differently. I would treat them differently, but the Geno God list plays by my rules. It would be lame of me to break my own rules. After that, God looked like he was smiling, but he wasn't smiling at Han Sr. What about you? You treat humans differently too. Why do you disguise yourself as one? I told you already that I am human. There is no pretending, Hansen said with a simple shrug of his shoulders. The two of them were in sync, so they stopped talking about it. They continued to watch the Geno Godless fights. There were many scary elites in the universe. Han Sen thought the Geno God list would be dominated by the 3 high races. But things really did not turn out that way. Many deified elites were from the 3 high races, but most of the deified elites were not from the 3 high races. There were many races Han Sen had never heard of before. It looks like the universe has many scary creatures hiding in it. I must be careful. Han Sen had a look at his next opponent. It was a butterfly-class Deep Abyss Knight. It was quite powerful. It crushed other xenogeneics of the same level to reach this round. Han Sen thought, although he is powerful, I do not think he can challenge me. The next few fights will be really boring. Would you like to play some chess? God stretched as he spoke to Han Sr. Sure. Han Sen did not decline. He wanted to play chess with God. Although he always lost, his chess skills were improving because of these losses. The game of chess was like a game of fighting. The more he improved in chess, the newer the areas and ideas Han Sen could learn for proper combat. That made him keep on wanting to play. With Han Sen's personality, if he did not win a round, he would not give up. After dozens of heartbreaking rounds of chess, Han Sen's next fight finally rolled around. Han Sen stood up and said, "Keep the game going. We will continue when I return." Their match was only halfway through. It looked as if he was going to win. So he wanted to quickly finish Deep Abyss Knight before continuing with God. "Okay. Good luck to you," God said with a smile. Han Sen accepted the Geno God list invitation and went to the space battleground. 2861 God Spirit Landing Deep Abyss Knight was a xenogeneic. He had an armored knight upper body and the lower body of an octopus. Many black, metal tentacles wriggled around his lower body. It was like he had a weird shadow. Even the space around him was twisted. Han Sen had watched the Deep Abyss Knight fight before. He knew that the Deep Abyss Knight was a dark element xenogeneic. He could release very strong and corrosive dark powers. His defensive attributes were very high. If a xenogeneic of the same level attacked his armor, one would be able to break it. Regarding his metallic tentacles, even if they were cut off, replacements grew almost instantly. So, attacking the tentacles was pointless. One had to break the armor or body to succeed. Han Sen was holding the return empty scabbard. It counted as half a god personality armament. Although it was man-made, it was not as powerful as a real god personality armament. Still, it was a treasure that was close to true god class. Although Han Sen wanted to hurry and play chess, Han Sen did not underestimate Deep Abyss Knight. He still stayed vigilant. Han Sen's xenogeneic mode was almost invincible, but there were many xenogeneics in the universe. They all had unbelievable powers. If Han Sen encountered a strange power and fell into its tricks, he would pay the price with his life. This was not a joke. The intelligence of most xenogeneics was not too high. Even if it was high, they would be low when it came to their emotional intelligence. Han Sen and the xenogeneic had nothing to talk about, so Han Sen gathered up power via his return empty scabbard and attacked. The knife was pure power, but his xenogeneic power amplified its strength to a force that exceeded true god class. A butterfly xenogeneic at the same level stood no chance of trying to withstand Han Sen's power. The return empty scabbard had its own power to deal too. If an ordinary butterfly xenogeneic was struck by Han Sen, it would end up dead or injured. The Deep Abyss Knight was very cold. His eyes were like black holes. They were so deep that it was like they could absorb light. He did not dodge. The Deep Abyss Knight crossed his arms across his chest. He was not planning on moving an inch. When the return empty scabbard got closer, the tentacles below his body moved. They were going for Han Sen's return empty scabbard. The tentacles struck the return empty scabbard, but not a single sound was made. The tentacles silently wrapped up the return empty scabbard. The suckers below the tentacles started to suck the return empty scabbard. Han Sen's expression changed. From what he had seen before, he knew the Deep Abyss Knight was strong, but he couldn't have such a strong power. He used one tentacle to block his return empty scabbard slash. With a power like that, Han Sen believed Deep Abyss Knight was a true god class. Han Sen's eyes looked cold. He was holding the return empty scabbard. He tried to pull it back. He saw the return empty scabbard flash with a purple light. No matter how hard Han Sen tried, the return empty scabbard did not move. It was sucked onto the tentacles. The Deep Abyss Knight's arms were still crossed across his chest. He coldly looked at Han Sen with a face of utter disdain and said, "Stupid creature." Following his words, purple and black flames surged out of the Deep Abyss Knight's body. His entire body was like a demon crawling out of purgatory. The tentacles holding the scabbard swung. They pulled on Han Sen and the scabbard. At the same time, other tentacles were wrapping up his body. Han Sen was shocked. He had to let the scabbard go. He quickly stumbled back and evaded the attacks of the lashing tentacles. How is that possible? How did the Deep Abyss Knight's power become so much stronger? Han Sen asked with a frown. If he did not know the Geno God list fights could have people swapping position, he would have started wondering whether or not it was the same Deep Abyss Knight he had seen before. Its power was certainly different. It was not just Han Sen that was confused. Many elites who knew Deep Abyss Knight were also in shock. Since when did the Deep Abyss Knight become so strong? With his power now, it does not look like a dark element only. The woman in Sky Palace was shocked. It is weird. Sky Palace leader frowned. In the very high exquisite, and Li Kier watched the scene. They thought it was strange too. Li Kier said, "I thought Deep Abyss Knight was a dark element being. Why is this Dark Knight suddenly different? Will Dollar lose?" "It looks like Deep Abyss Knight is stronger than Dollar," Exquisite coldly said. "Just one skill has disarmed him. He took his treasure scabbard. I am afraid Dollar is going to lose this round." When Li Kier heard that, she felt terrible. Although she had been unsuccessful in making Dollar her silkworm, she still did not want Dollar to lose. On Empty Mountain, the green-haired beast looked confused. "Weird. Why is that Deep Abyss Knight so strong? I fought Deep Abyss Knight once, and he was not that strong." The woman nearby coldly looked at Deep Abyss Knight and said, "In this world, whatever monster shows up, it does not matter. Little Mountain Leader will defeat them. Empty Mountain will once again be back on top." "You are right," the green-haired beast said with a cocky look. "Little Mountain Leader's power is almost as good as the old Mountain Leader. Swallowing a true god is not difficult for it. Whether it's Deep Abyss Knight or Dollar, whoever stands in Little Mountain Leader's way will end up dead." When Isha saw that the return empty scabbard had been stolen by Deep Abyss Knight, she frowned. "What is Dollar doing?" In the Extreme King Garden, God stroked his jaw and said to himself, "Was my hint not clear enough?" He used Sky Armor God's rib bone to attack Sky Armor God. That is just giving up the ghost. You just gave the god personality back. With Sky Armor God's personality, I do not think he will take the god personality and run. Deep Abyss Knight swung his tentacles and brought the scabbard next to him. Then he let go of his arm. He used his right arm to grab the return empty scabbard. His eyes flashed with a weird light. Han Sen frowned and looked at Deep Abyss Knight. He felt there was something wrong. Deep Abyss Knight was releasing a presence that felt the same as the return empty scabbard. Deep Abyss Knight stroked the return empty scabbard. He felt extremely happy. His happiness could not be described. My god personality has finally been returned. After Deep Abyss Knight performed that action, the return empty scabbard's light became brighter and brighter. It looked like the flames on Deep Abyss Knight were connecting. They released a light that blew into the sky. At this time, even the elites who were watching could tell what was happening. Deep Abyss Knight did not have strong enough power to cause a reaction with the scabbard that would result in it exploding so powerfully. "This is true god-class power," the woman said with shock. "Did Deep Abyss Knight become a true god?" "No, that is not a true god. He is not the real Deep Abyss Knight." Sky Palace leader's eyes were icy. He said, "He is a god spirit that descended." 2862 Han Sen's galaxy teleportation. Han Sen knew what the Deep Abyss Knight's problem was. He thought, it looks like Deep Abyss Knight already combined with the universe's god body by a god. His presence and scabbard are so similar. And the scabbard was made from a broken god personality. That means he is the scabbard's master. He must be that Sky Armor God. It is no wonder God told me not to bring out the scabbard when facing Sky Armor God. That is why. But that heads up was fairly useless. How was I supposed to know when and where Sky Armor God would fight me? I could not hold off on using the scabbard forever. With that being the case, what is the point in owning the scabbard in the first place? After guessing Sky Armor God's identity, Han Sen was not keen on standing down. He continued looking at Sky Armor God, who was doing the same. Sky Armor God was holding the scabbard. Although he resonated with the scabbard because it was man-made, recovering his body with it would still take some time and tricks. Furthermore, Sky Armor God did not want to open his chest in public and fit his bone back inside. For now, Sky Armor God only held the scabbard. The purple and black flames on his body kept burning as he looked at Han Senator. It was not an option for him to take the scabbard, concede, and leave the space battleground. That was impossible. Gods had the dignity of gods. Even if Sky Armor God wanted to leave, he had to leave as the victor. Because you took my god personality, this is your unlucky day. Sky Armor God stared at Han Senator. He raised the scabbard and looked at him with disdain. As your reward for returning the scabbard, I will allow you to die by the scabbard. After that, Sky Armor God waved his arm. The scabbard carried a scary purple and black knife light. It came straight for Han Senator. The knife light acted as if it was splitting space in half. It was so powerful that it made people's hearts tremble. When seeing this slash, the expressions on the faces of many deified xenogeniacs changed. Han Sen's body quickly flashed away. He had dodged the knife light. When it appeared again, it was on the other side of space. Galaxy teleportation. Han Sen had practiced his teleportation abilities for a long time. He had finally practiced galaxy teleportation, but Han Sen had only studied a part of it. He modified space teleportation into a version that was more suitable for his body. Because of the Dongxian Aura's power buff, Han Sen's break space flash was faster than God's Wander. He used space teleportation as a normal teleportation talent. It was even faster than short-distance teleportation. No one expected Han Sen would be able to dodge that slashing power. Sky Armor God waved the scabbard again. He swung it at Han Senator. This time it was stronger and faster. It suddenly ripped space to appear directly in front of Han Senator. Han Sen's body was able to flash away, so the knife light missed its target. How many attacks are you able to evade? Sky Armor God coldly asked. He started slashing with the scabbard at an even faster pace. Sky Armor God slashed a dozen times. Each slash was faster and harder than the one before. He was slashing out many purple and black space cracks, which were like deep trenches in the vastness of space. Even so, not a single one of them was able to damage Han Sr. That is a very fast space teleportation skill. It seems faster than the very highest God's Wander. This dollar is not an easy fellow to beat. Sky Palace leader was shocked by the performance. God's spirit combined body, the woman said. That power can challenge a true god class, and perhaps something even stronger. Space teleportation speed can dodge the striking attacks. That is very rare. It is a shame that evading attacks is ultimately pointless. He cannot go against the Sky Armor God and slay a god. He will lose. Going against the Sky Armor God and slaying a god is not easy. If this was Golden Growler, he might stand a chance of beating the enemy. Sky Palace leader looked at Han Sen and said, Dollar's body fitness is strong, but he is still only butterfly class. If he could become a true god, perhaps he could stand a chance. All the elites of every race understood Han Sen's situation. Relying on the unlimited space teleportation, he was able to dodge the Deep Abyss Knight's attacks. But who knew space teleportation itself cost energy? To keep using space teleportation like that meant he would eventually run out of power. Once that happened, he was going to lose. Space teleportation is very powerful. It looks like he can use it whenever and however he wants. He does not need to prepare time for it, and he can keep using it to move. That is stronger than the very highest God's Wander. The Extreme King's second uncle profusely complimented the talent. Bai King looked at the space battleground without speaking. His eyes looked strange. He felt a bit angry. A god spirit has descended to Earth. He took the Deep Abyss Knight's body. They are getting more ballsy. Bai King recognized Sky Armor God. After all, his power had been able to combine with the return empty scabbard. It was too easy to guess the identity of the villain. It did not matter who was king of the extreme king at the time. Any of them would have despised Sky Armor God. The same applied to Bai King. If he was able to strike, he would want to be like Knife King and cut out Sky Armor God's bones again. Sky Armor God thought space teleportation required a lot of power. All he had to do was slash a few more times to make Han Sun exhausted. When he could no longer use space teleportation, he could kill him. Han Sun kept using space teleportation without reprieve, and he was showing no signs of slowing down. That surprised Sky Armor God. In fact, it was not just Sky Armor God who was surprised. Even God, who was in the garden, was surprised. He is continuously using space teleportation, yet his body does not look like it is getting tired. It is not just his body that is strong. His body keeps drawing an energy from the universe to keep his energy reserves full. The very high can barely do something like that even if they max out Sky and Men combined together. He is just a butterfly and can already do this. Is it a simple talent, or has he practiced it a lot? Ordinary deified creatures were afraid of using too much power. But Han Sun had 4 battle bodies that were combined. The Dongxian battle body was able to keep on absorbing energy directly from the universe. It kept providing him with energy. If Han Sen's body did not collapse, he could fight endlessly. He did not have to worry about exhaustion. Sky Armor God saw the problem. He coldly grunted. In that case, I will make you stop hiding. The scabbard slashed out like a shadow. Many knife lights created a crack in space. He was going to trap Han Sun inside a space crack. Space teleportation was actually a space movement. If Sky Armor God cracked the space around Han Sun, he would be totally disconnected from it. Even if Han Sun had his powerful space teleportation skill, he could not escape it. Han Sun kept teleporting. More cracks were showing up in space, so there were fewer places for him to teleport to. The space battleground was not the real universe. It was just an area of space. Its power was limited. Han Sun did not have enough space to move around freely. Han Sun did not expect to keep running around forever. Teleporting was a way for him to observe. He wanted to learn about Sky Armor God's power. He did not know anything about Sky Armor God. People needed to know their enemy, so Han Sun had to learn about Sky Armor God. Han Sun had slain 2 gods. He did not mind doing it again, but he needed to make sure it was a success. He could not blindly attack and end up dying. Where are you running to? Sky Armor God kept slashing. Purple and black knife lights kept cutting space up, producing the scary space cracks. Han Sun was now surrounded by space cracks from all directions. He was trapped in the soul area that had not been broken, but space there was cut off from the outside. No matter how strong Han Sen's space teleportation was, he could no longer teleport away. In Blood Legion, Lu Lai looked at Sky Armor God with fire. He recognized who Sky Armor God was. It is over. Dollar is strong, but fighting a god is too much. It was a shame it was not me encountering this god. Otherwise, I might have been able to kill him. 2863 One lance pierced through God. The elites of every race knew this fight was going to end soon. Han Sun conceding was the only outcome. There was no way he could escape the attack of Sky Armor God. He could only be killed. Sky Armor God wanted to hurry things up and be able to refine the god personality. He did not have the mood to drag this out and play games with Han Senator. Therefore, he unleashed his attack. Han Sun did not want to lose and quit the space battleground. He had been observing this for so long. Even though he had no idea what Sky Armor God's limit was, he knew for sure that after Deep Abyss Knight combined with Sky Armor God, the body still had some of Deep Abyss Knight's power. After combining the god personality, Deep Abyss Knight's body was also reinforced. It was able to reach true god class. Currently, Sky Armor God was just a true god class creature. Achieving victory was not out of the question. Seeing the ripping sky and knife light in front of him, Han Sun put out his hand. A green bone lance appeared in it. He thrust it forward against the knife light. He is trying too hard. No matter how strong a butterfly class fighter is, he cannot fight a god spirit. The woman in Sky Palace frowned as she spoke. Many others had the same worry. No matter how they viewed this, they all agreed that he was trying too hard. When the spear hit the knife light, People were shocked to find out the lance light was able to pierce through the knife light. It looked like the northern lights. The body and lance teleported in front of Sky Armor God. It was being thrust into Sky Armor God's arm that was holding the scabbard. Sky Armor God did not expect that would happen. It was too late for him to stop. He used the armor of his arm to block. Catcha! Sky Armor God paid the price because of his pride and ignorance. The green light pierced through the armor and drilled into him. The entire head of the lance was being thrust through. It penetrated Sky Armor God's gauntlet and arm. Sky Armor God was in pain. He could not hold the scabbard tightly. Han Sen was able to grab it back. His body was in extreme shock, so he started to stumble back. Seeing Sky Armor God's arm with god blood bleeding out of it, even Sky Palace leader and Bai King were incredibly shocked. They could not help but look at Han Sen's Sky Radish Bone Lance. It is a god personality armament. Sky Armor God looked ill. He stared at the Sky Radish Bone Lance in Han Sen's hands. In the wound on his arm, green saplings were starting to grow. This was different from Han Sen killing a Xenogeniac with one hit. The saplings on Sky Armor God's arm were growing slowly. They began as little green leaves. It looks like gods cannot completely withstand the power of a god personality armament. Han Sen made his mind up. As long as he was able to hurt the god, he had nothing to be afraid of. God personality armament. Throughout the universe, many ancient and hidden elites heard Sky Armor God say those words. They were instantly in shock. People who knew what a god personality armament also knew how difficult it was to gain a god personality armament. It cannot be a real god personality armament, the Sky Palace woman said with surprise. With Dollar's level, he does not have the power to enter the Geno Hall. How could he have a god personality armament? If the god spirit said it was a god personality armament, that is what it is. This Dollar is becoming more and more interesting, Sky Palace leader said while squinting his eyes. He was checking out Han Sen and the Sky Radish God Lance. Interesting. Lulai stared at Han Sen with fire in his eyes. A god personality armament? Bai King looked weird. It was difficult to tell what he was thinking. How is that possible? Asked the green-haired beast. That cannot be a real god personality armament. In a dark corner of the world, Old Vulture and Auntie May had strange expressions on their faces. Could that truly be a real god personality armament? Did Dollar enter the Geno Hall and kill a god spirit? Auntie May looked at Old Vulture and asked, "Have you guys seen that god personality armament? Was it left by that guy?" "I do not think so," Old Vulture said while shaking his head. "There has never been a lance like this before. If it was not from before, did he really go to the Geno Hall, kill a god spirit, and run? That is impossible." Auntie May shook her head. Suddenly, all the elites in the universe were staring at the Sky Radish God Lance. Their faces kept changing. No matter how you get your hands on a god personality armament, or who you are, you must die today. Sky Armor God stared at Han Senator. The mood to kill was almost tangible. The purple-black flames on him were getting stronger. The saplings had only just shown up, but the flames made them stop growing. Even the scabbard in Han Sen's hand was struggling. It wanted to fly back to Sky Armor God. Han Sen used significant strength to suppress the scabbard, which did not fly to Sky Armor God. Boom! Sky Armor God's fire was like the eruption of a volcano. With that wash of power, the metal armor melted into iron juice. It was dripping across his body like a meteor shower through space that was falling. The tentacles were dancing. Sky Armor God was coming for Han Senator after the armor on his body slowly melted off. It revealed a powerful and naked chest. Many bones could be seen on his chest, giving him the appearance of a skeleton. The skeleton was like a purple crystal. It was startlingly clear, but it was getting deeper. It looked like the material to make a return empty scabbard. Quickly, a purple outside bone armor was floating on Sky Armor God's chest. It protected his chest. The bone armor looked exactly like two purple ribs together. There were 7 rib bones on each side. It looked very symmetric, but the left side was missing one bone. This guy really is Sky Armor God. When the people of the Extreme King saw the missing rib bone on the outside skeleton armor, they were able to confirm Sky Armor God's identity. It made them all gnash their teeth. It looks like the scabbard is made from this outside bone armor's rib bones. Can one rib bone have that effect? If we cut both sides of the rib bone? Hansun squinted his eyes and stared at Sky Armor God. He was not afraid of Sky Armor God exploding with power. BZD. Hansun kept trying to suppress Return Empty Scabbard, which had a power that could not be imagined. It escaped Hansen's hand and flew to Sky Armor God. Hansun opened the palms of his hand. His hands had a wound that revealed the bones within the flesh. They were there because of the Return Empty Scabbard's escape. Very powerful power, Hansun thought. The Return Empty Scabbard flew back to Sky Armor God. It landed on the broken bones. It was now like another rib bone. It lined up on the armor of the outside skeleton. The broken parts were connecting, slowly becoming a part of the skeleton armor. The scabbard bone looked a bit different than the other rib bones. After all, it had been made into a scabbard. Its original look was hard to maintain. Blasphemy to a god spirit. Die. Sky Armor God appeared like a god as he looked at Han Senator. His body surged with a scary presence. The bone armor was bright. It was like it was connecting to all of space. The god's sounds were like thunder. Oh my days! What is going on? Many creatures who did not know the truth were frozen. Sky Armor God released pressure. Even the people outside the battleground felt uncomfortable. Their foreheads developed a cold sweat. The weaker creatures with smaller hearts were paralyzed on the floor. 2864 Sky Armor God Jail. That should not be Deep Abyss Night. Although ordinary creatures did not know Sky Armor God, they started to wonder after seeing that power. Deep Abyss Night was a dark element deified xenogenic. No matter how powerful they were, they should not have had the power of a god. Sky Armor God was damaged by the Extreme King. Now he was damaged by Han Senator. He was furious. He activated his god personality to try and kill Han Senator. When the god personality raged, Sky Armor God used his power to the max. Han Sun clearly saw the universe had a universal cogwheel. The light Sky Armor God's outside skeleton armor was dyed purple. It had the same color as the skeleton armor. All of the universal cogwheels that connected to the substance chains were being affected. Han Sun tried to use his Dongxian area to control the purple universal cogwheels, but he noticed he was unable to do anything about them. It was like the universal cogwheels formed an independent operation mode. It was like they were not getting affected by the Dongxian area. BZD. Sky Armor God continued his approach. The flickering, purple lights of the universal cogwheels made them spin faster. It made the substance chains move faster. Destiny's knife armor bone is like jail. God's Sky Armor. Sky Armor God's voice boomed like thunder. The purple light was spreading in front of his chest. It became a purple light knife. It suddenly trapped Hansen's body inside it. Hansen's Sky Radish God Lance exploded with a scary green light. It swept across the purple light knife. But the Sky Radish God Lance touched the purple light knife. The purple light knife did not break. It was not shaken away. It stuck to the Sky Radish God Lance. Ka. Hansun saw the purple light knife sticking to the Sky Radish God Lance, and realized it was a layer of purple bones. The purple bones were stuck to the Sky Radish God Lance. It was like Sky Radish God Lance had a bone lock shell, and every bone was stuck to it. Hansun felt the Sky Radish God Lance become heavier. In the blink of an eye, Hansun was almost unable to hold the Sky Radish God Lance. At the same time, the purple light knife was shining at Hansun from all angles. Hansun dragged the Sky Radish God Lance, wanting to use his space teleportation to leave. He noticed that the universal cogwheels around him were cut off by the purple universal cogwheels. Unless he could break the purple universal cogwheels, he could not use space teleportation to escape. Hansun had to swing his fist to fight. He wanted to shake away the purple light knife. When the purple light knife touched his fist, it became a bone slice. Within a moment, Hansen's body was covered in bone slices. The Sky Radish God Lance had them too. Hansen's entire body was hanging in space. He was like a statue that wore bone armor. With the suppression of the bone slices, Hansen's power could not move an inch. All the power in his body exploded like crazy. He could barely stand. He did not get crushed by the bone slices. So, What if you have a god personality armament? A low-life creature is a low-life creature. It does not matter what you have. In front of a god, you are just a worthless piece of trash. Sky Armor God coldly looked at Han Senator. His eyes looked scary and murderous. With the things he said, the bone slices on Han Sen started to go straight and turn into weapons. They were going to cut into Han Sen's flesh, riddling his skin with thousands and thousands of cuts. The bone slices were incredibly sharp. They pierced into Han Sen's flesh. Even though Han Sen's body was like a true god body, he could not block the cuts dealt by those bone slices. The scariest thing about it was that the bone slice suppression prevented his power from leaking beyond them. Han Sen was unable to move. This is what you get for committing blasphemous acts upon a god spirit. The Sky Armor Bone Jail will strip you of your flesh. It will have you pay for your crimes. Sky Armor God looked very excited. Game over. Now Dollar cannot even concede. Li Kier turned pale. She was worried about Dollar. It is a shame that the god personality armament looks like it was not Dollar himself that went to the Geno Hall to get the god personality armament. Bai King shook his head. He has a god personality armament, but still cannot kill a god. In Sky Palace, the woman looked disappointed. Dollar is only butterfly class, Sky Palace leader said with a sigh and a look of great shame. His flesh is still better than a true god. He can fight a true god but not a god spirit. If he can level up to true god, I would say he stands a very good chance. What a shame. I am afraid he will not have another chance at this. Tang Junliu looked into the space battleground. He was shouting, "Keep going. Don't just stand there." Wang Yuhang and the others all looked a bit pale. Ningyu looked scared while holding Bauer's arm. Little Angel and Zero were watching Han Sen with eyes full of worry. It seemed as if the creatures of the universe forgot to breathe. They nervously looked at the bone slices cutting into Han Sen's flesh. They were thinking of the cruel scene that was going to happen. Han Sen, who had countless bone slices piercing into his flesh, finally spoke. "You are Sky Armor God, right? I did not expect you to know my god title," Sky Armor God coldly said. "Are you really a god?" Han Sen asked. "Not bad, but it is too late to beg," Sky Armor God confidently said. Performing a blasphemous act against a god spirit is something that cannot be forgiven. Han Sen looked at Sky Armor God and coldly said, "Unforgivable is used well. My blasphemy to a god spirit should have me cut up thousands of times without forgiveness. You forced your way into another creature's body and also killed people. What is a crime like that worth?" Sky Armor God laughed and said, "I am God. Gods control the universe. I have not sinned. Even if I have sinned, everyone should suffer. Who can judge me? I am God." "Me," Han Sen calmly said. "What did you say?" Sky Armor God thought that was funny. He looked at Han Sen like he was a funny clown. "If no one can judge you, then I will judge you." Han Sen was still calmly looking at Sky Armor God. "Do you think you can judge me, God? I am right here. How are you going to judge me?" Sky Armor God looked at Han Sen like he was smiling, but he wasn't smiling. His words were smothered in a joking tone of voice. Han Sen's body was going to get cut, yet he could still talk like that. From Sky Armor God's perspective, he was a lunatic. It was not just Sky Armor God thinking that. Most creatures in the universe started to wonder if Han Sen was crazy. In a time like that, he could still talk that way. "So Sky Armor God, allow me to judge you." Han Sen looked at Sky Armor God as he slowly spoke each word. While Han Sen spoke, his left eye, which had the black and white color, was flashing. Suddenly, the eye no longer looked human. It looked like a cold mechanical eye. 2865 Judgment. When Han Sen became butterfly class, and his left eye combined with the true god class Extreme King's overbearing eye, he accidentally leveled up. It was a shame he failed to achieve true god class. Although his leveling up had failed, the Extreme King's overbearing eye absorbed Han Sen's xenogenic power. It resulted in a change. It combined with Han Sen's xenogenic body, turning his left eye into a true god class existence. Now, Han Sen's whole body was mostly butterfly class. Only his left eye was true god class. It was strange. His eye possessed law power. With it combining with Han Sen's xenogenic power, it created some sort of mutation. It was a bit different from the Extreme King's overbearing eye law power. Han Sen did not know if his true god left eye could threaten Sky Armor God, but this was a different god to the one in his house. He sensed a very dark black color inside Sky Armor God's body. It was the color of crime. It was so dark that it was like ink. God only knew how many sins Sky Armor God had committed to have this color. It does not matter if you are a true god or a fake god. I will judge your crimes today. Han Sen sounded very cold. The white and black colors of his eyes exploded. Beastie. A black and white two-tone beam of light exploded from Han Sen's eye. It shone on Sky Armor God. The beam of light looked like it was supposed to be there. Sky Armor God did not have any time to react. His entire body was covered by the black and white two-toned beam of light. The black beam of light became chains that entangled Sky Armor God's body. The white beam of light became a book. It was in front of Sky Armor God. Sky Armor God was shocked and angry. He tried his best to get rid of the black chains, but he noticed his entire body had been trapped by a weird power. He was unable to move. How is that possible? In the universe, there is a power that can restrict my power. What is this power? Sky Armor God was shocked. Catcha! Catcha! Sky Armor God was tangled up by the black chains, so he could not use his power. The bone slices around Han Sen started to fall away. The purple bone slices turned into dust. Han Sen was set free. Let me see what crimes Sky Armor God has committed. Han Sen raised his hands. The white beam of light became an old book that landed on Han Senator. Han Sen flipped through the pages, but they were empty. There was no law inside them. There also were no scales or counterweights similar to when Han Sen was being judged. The moment Han Sen received the book, his brain had many images playing like a movie. They kept flickering in his head. They made Han Sen understand something. Sky Armor God, you have committed serious crimes. You should die. Han Sen raised his head and wrote down the word die in his book. The book suddenly flew up. The word die started to shine. It became an executioner's sword that slashed toward Sky Armor God. How dare you, a low-life creature, judge a god like me? Sky Armor God was furious. Beneath the black chains that bound him, Sky Armor God was unable to move his body. Catcha! The executioner's sword came down. It cut off Sky Armor God's head, resulting in blood immediately squirting out. The creatures in the universe were frozen. They could not believe what they were seeing. Sky Armor God, who was so powerful earlier, had been simply decapitated like that. In Sky Palace, the woman opened her mouth in shock. Am I hallucinating? Sky Armor God was killed just like that? That was like law power, but it was somewhat different. Sky Palace leader also looked confused. The Extreme King were very surprised. Bai was shocked. That power looked like the second leader of the Extreme King's overbearing eye. But it was still quite different. It is scarier. Can law power judge a god spirit? If we knew that, we should have let our children and grandchildren learn the second leader's Geno arts. Who is this dollar? He is too strange. Can he just kill a god spirit like that? The universe was shocked to its core. Ordinary creatures did not know how powerful god spirits were. Only the old antiques knew how scary god spirits were. Every one of them looked surprised. The execution ended. The black chains and old white book were gone. It did not make Han Sen feel relaxed. He still stared at Sky Armor God's body. Han Sen saw the body outside of the skeleton armor was melting. Sky Armor God's body looked like Deep Abyss Night again. After Han Sen slew Sky Armor God, the announcement he got was for killing a butterfly Deep Abyss Night. It was not for killing Sky Armor God. Han Sen knew why this was happening. The crime Han Sen saw did not belong to Sky Armor God. It belonged to the true owner of the body, who was Deep Abyss Night. The law power could only judge Deep Abyss Night's body. It was unable to kill Sky Armor God. It made Sky Armor God separate from Deep Abyss Night. He had become a god spirit with nothing. He left Deep Abyss Night's body. Ordinary creatures could only see a purple bone armor rise to the sky. They could not see the purple bone armor with the god spirit Sky Armor God. Dollar, this is not over yet, Sky Armor God angrily said to Han Senator. He sent the god personality back to Sky Armor God's temple. After the God spirit and God personality combined with the creatures in the universe, they could not just separate again. He forced it to separate. Because of that, he was damaged. He could no longer fight. One could have said he was in a bad situation. It was worse than when Knife King stole his rib bone. Without a universe God body, he could not do anything to the creatures of the universe. Therefore, there was no point in him staying any longer. It is not over yet, Hansen coldly said. Only one of us will live. It will not happen to you. Sky Armor God coldly grunted. He ignored Han's senator. He just wanted to return to Sky Armor God Temple. He was no longer able to attack creatures in the universe, but creatures of the universe could not damage him. Thus, Sky Armor God was not worried Hansen could hurt him. I am going to make you unable to die or live. Sky Armor God was madly cursing him. He was forced to separate from his universe God body. The damage he incurred was worse than when Knife King stole his rib bone. Upon thinking of that, Sky Armor God menacingly looked at Han's senator. He was instantly shocked. Hansen's body had a giant green god spirit. It was holding Sky Radish God Lance. It came before him. Sky Vine Radish. No. Sky Armor God screamed, but he could only shout no. The big green god spirit clutched the Sky Radish God Lance to break his spirit body. The god personality fell. Hansen took it. God spirit hunted. Found God spirit gene. Other creatures were unable to see Sky Armor God and Sky Vine Radish. After seeing Hansen judge Deep Abyss Knife, a purple bone armor rose from Deep Abyss Knight's body. It looked like Hansen threw the green lance, and purple bone armor fell from the sky. 2866 God Sadness appears again. Boom. Purple light shot into the sky. It became an empty sky crack in space. A silent, sad mind was all across the universe. It's a God Sadness. That is a God Sadness. Killed. It is a real God spirit. In the universe, many spirits were looking at the God Sadness appear in space. They were all in shock. Ordinary creatures were doubting Sky God Armor's identity. When the God Sadness showed up, they stopped doubting. Oh my God. Really did kill a God spirit. The human dollar. Can someone tell me what sort of race a human is? This is madness. Another God Sadness. This era is madness. Is the chaos of the sacred era repeating? The elites who knew what Sky God Armor meant looked at the God Sadness weirdly. They even lost interest in talking. A butterfly xenogeniac had managed to kill a God spirit, and he was holding a God personality armament in his hands. They wanted to know who this dollar was. Many elites used all kinds of tricks to learn his identity, yet none of them were able to uncover who the elusive dollar was. God stared at Hansen and thought, why would he have Sky Vine Radish's spirit? Why would it be controlled by him? Is there some sort of power restricting Sky Vine Radish's spirit? After the fight was over, Dollar's name was known across the entire universe. This dollar is a little weird. If Little Mountain Leader encounters him, there might be some trouble, the green-haired beast said with a look of seriousness. He was very confident in Golden Growler's abilities. After watching Hansen defeat Sky Armor God, he was not so sure if Golden Growler was capable of achieving first place. The woman near him coldly said, he was able to defeat Sky Armor God not through his own power, but on a weird Geno art and the God personality armament. He is just a butterfly class opponent. The God personality armament is strong. With his butterfly body's movement, he cannot beat Little Mountain Leader. That Geno art he has is a law power. It is similar to the second leader of the Extreme King's power. That power is useless against the Little Mountain Leader. You're entitled to say that, but this dollar guy is strange. It is like there are some problems with him, the green-haired beast said with a frown. He could not identify what the problem was. Hansen returned to the garden. God looked at him like he was smiling, but he was not smiling. Hansen knew that God would be suspicious about his ability to make use of the Sky Vine Radish. He was not surprised. It did surprise Hansen that while God did look at him, he did not ask anything. Hansen looked at God with curiosity as he asked, "Do you not want to ask anything? If there is something you wanted to tell me, you would tell me without me asking," God coldly said. "If you did not want to say something, You would not answer me even if I asked you. Why would I bother asking? Aren't you good at talking deals? Maybe I will tell you if you talk about deals. Han Sen laughed. God shook his head and smiled. He said, I prefer to discover secrets myself. Things are more interesting that way. Han Sen was shocked. He did not expect God would say such a thing. The plans he had made were useless now. He suddenly did not know what to say. Sky Vine Radish's God Temple. Sky Armor God has one too, right? Can you take me there again? Han Sen had two God personalities. If he did not go to the temple, the God personality seemed useless. Han Sen had yet to find a way how to refine the God personalities he had. God shook his head. No, you can go there, but you will have to go there by yourself. How do I get there? Han Sen asked. You will know when you enter the Geno Hall, God said with a smile. Han Sen was speechless. He guessed the temples might have been inside the Geno Hall, but he did not think he could go to the Geno Hall just yet. He didn't say anything. Han Sen kept watching the God fights, trying to observe the opponents he might later go up against. Because the opponent in the next round had yet to finish, Han Sen did not know who he would be going up against. He knew none of his future opponents would be easy. The Geno God fights had been going on for a while. There were no more weaklings. They were all top deifites now. In a palace in the Extreme King, Ancient Abyss Grandmaster bowed and said, Mr. The skill dollar used was similar to our second leader of the Extreme King, Extreme King's overbearing eye. Holy Baby's body combined with the Extreme King's overbearing eye. He should be familiar with that Geno art. Do you think Holy Baby is dollar? Bai King put down his pen. He raised his head and looked at Ancient Abyss Grandmaster. They are both very similar, Ancient Abyss Grandmaster said. Although Holy Baby might not be dollar. If dollar can use a law skill to beat a God spirit, perhaps Mr. Holy Baby can too. Sure, I will deal with this, Bai King slowly said. Is there anything more? Ancient Abyss Grandmaster sighed and said, There is progress in the Big Baron systems. I have calculated the location of the entrance to the old sacred ruin, but we have run into some trouble. What trouble? Bai King asked with a frown. Sky Palace's people were there, Ancient Abyss said. I am afraid they located the entrance too. We are asking for your advice. Bai King was silent a moment before saying, Don't do anything yet. If Sky Palace wants to go in, let them go in first. We will follow. Sure. I understand. Ancient Abyss bowed and left the palace. After Ancient Abyss left, Bai King thought Holy Baby. He reached his hand out to take something, but quickly pulled his hand back. He shook his head and said, Whatever. Things are already in motion. There is no turning back. We have to keep going. Han Sen thought it was Bai King who had come looking for him to ask about the Extreme King's overbearing eye. Surprisingly, Bai King did not go and find him. Does the power in my left eye that different from the Extreme King's overbearing eye that Bai King did not even suspect anything? Han Sen wondered. God seemed to know what Han Sen was thinking. He laughed and said, The Extreme King must have their suspicions on you, but Bai King is here. Even if they do, they cannot do anything to you. Is Bai King not suspicious? Han Sen asked. Of course he is not suspicious, God said with certainty. Why? Han Sen did not understand why Bai King was not suspicious. Because he knows you are dollar. There is no need to be suspicious if he knows. God laughed. Why doesn't he ask anything? Han Sen's suspicions were not minimized because of the answer. Because there is no need to ask, God said. It does not matter if you are dollar or not. To him, all that matters is that you keep living. Why does he want me to keep living? Han Sen was even more confused. God laughed and did not answer. He said, After winning one more round, you will breach the top 100. Then, you will be able to leave your name on the Geno God list. Will you feel successful? 2867 Top 100 Lise Han Sen thought he would have trouble getting into the top 100, but his opponent gave up. His enemy did not appear on the space battleground for their fight. Han Sen realized that killing Sky Armor God had created an interesting effect. Before figuring out who he was, even top-class deified elites feared him. Just like this round, The opponent was the top class. It was a true god-class xenogeniac that was very powerful. Even he did not dare go to the space battleground to fight. These people are overestimating my abilities. But that is good. It saves me a lot of trouble. Han Sen departed the space battleground. After entering the top 100 rounds, the modes of fighting had changed. The matches were no longer simple deathmatches. The mode of the top 100 round fights made Han Sen complain to God. Your ranking fights are too childish. How can you choose what rank you are? It was no wonder Han Sen complained. The top 100 mode of fighting was strange. Every creature in the top 100 list could choose what rank they wanted to be. Each rank could only be chosen by one creature. It did not depend on who was stronger. It was all about speed. If one was fast enough, one could end up being in the top place. When Han Sen looked at the matches, things seemed even more unreasonable. After picking a rank, every person chose the rank they wished to challenge. If one was on the 100 list and wanted first place, one could go straight to challenge the being in first place. That challenge could only be done once. If one failed, one could not challenge any other rank. No matter how strong one would still be in 100th place. Han Sen looked at God and said, "If you do this, then whoever selects first place will accept the challenges of many other creatures. For the spots that no one wants, they would not even have to have a single fight." "You do not understand," God said with a smile. "That is why it is interesting. You should think about what rank you want to be. If you want to be first, just tell me. I can bend the rules for you and put you in first place." "Thanks, but no thanks. I do not want to get ranked." Han Sen was considering which rank he should select. Now that he had thought about it, there were skills involved that depended on which rank he selected. Even the ones that could take first place would think about whether or not they should actually choose it. If they kept getting ganged up on, they could lose. The creatures that were just average and not top class had a better chance of getting a higher spot, which would not be outstanding. Han Sen planned to choose a spot that was not too high so it would not be outstanding. Although Han Sen's power was not bad, and he had a god personality armament, the ones that could get into the top 100 were all true god deified. None of them would be easy to beat. There were people like Very High Leader and Sky Palace Leader. Even if they did not have a god personality armament, they could wield true god weaponry. The chances of Han Sen winning were slim. Han Sen's target was to reach the top 100. Now he had what he wanted. He did not plan on reaching first place. With the reward of the ranks, the top 10 must be the most popular. God only knows how many creatures actually want them. When the list is revealed, the top 10 will be bosses. It will only be me there, who is easy to bully. I bet people will want to challenge me. The top 10 is not good for me. Han Sen watched for a while. He thought somewhere around 20 would be great. At around 20, true gods would not like that. They would not challenge those places. And the weaker sorts would not select that ranking. Han Sen could probably select a ranking there. At around 20, he was able to sit back and watch the fireworks. He would even have a chance to challenge the higher ranks. If he lost, rank 20 would not be so bad. Han Sen planned on choosing a rank somewhere around 20. The best spot was 22. If he was unable to choose it, he would choose one of the others inside the 20s. As he waited to choose his rank, Han Sen had a screen in front of him. There were 100 squares labeled 1 to 100. The very top had a countdown. After the timer was up, they could start taking their spot and see who got which rank first. Han Sen, this god is so boring. Even a fight needs you to take rank. When the countdown was up, Han Sen clicked on the number 22 tile. When Han Sen was going to select number 22, the number 22 tile became red. Someone had already taken it. Han Sen quickly checked out which number in the 20s was still available. He could only hear cha-cha, as all the 20s became red. From 11 to 40, all the positions had been taken. But there were still positions in the top 10 and lower that had yet to be taken. Higher or lower? Han Sen hesitated a little. He heard cha-cha. Most of the squares turned red. There were only 3 more numbers behind 95 left. Holy shit. This is too fast. Is this a Mother Asterisk King garage sale? Han Sen felt depressed. There was no point in choosing after 95. The rewards were similar. No one would challenge that spot. So Han Sen chose the highest one out of the last three numbers. He selected 98. Before he raised his hand, 98 and 99 were gone. There were only 100 left. I can challenge someone once. I will choose 100. Han Sen selected the 100 square. After confirming his position, Han Sen looked at the rankings. He noticed the one in the highest place was Golden Growler. Very High Leader was second. Lulai was third. Demon Alpha was fourth. A Xenogeniac, called Seeking Perfume Beast, was fifth. Ancient Gods Ancient Sacrifice God was sixth. Extreme Kings by Wuchang was seventh. A Xenogeniac called Empty Dragon King was eighth. A Xenogeniac was ninth. Han Sen discovered the top 100 were mostly Xenogeniacs. The famous races of the universe were actually quite rare. Han Sen looked through it all the way to 81. He then saw the name Zhang Xiandao. Sky Palace Leader is very humble. He chose such a low rank. Han Sen was speechless. Thinking about Sky Palace Leader's personality, it was not too strange that he had chosen that. Han Sen looked down. When he saw number 84, he was shocked. Burning Lamp. He cannot be the Burning Lamp Alpha from the Buddha. Can he? How did he get into the top 100? Han Sen was a bit surprised. As far as he knew, Burning Lamp Alpha was deified but just larva class. There was no way he had managed to get into the top 100. 2868 Space in his palms. Buddha had issues with resources and gene talents. Only Burning Lamp was deified, but his lifespan was almost gone. His ability to level up was practically over. With a guy like that getting into the top 100, it made Han Sen wonder. It was a shame that Han Sen did not read the complete Geno God list fight. He only saw the fights that were about him. He did not notice Burning Lamp working his way into the top 100. God looked at Han Sen's rank and laughed. The top 100 is not bad. Although it is starting a little low, fighting upwards will be fun. Han Sen pointed at the number 84 that displayed the name Burning Lamp and asked, "Have you seen this guy's matches? How did he get into the top 100? As far as I know, he is just larva class." "He is not larva class. He is the same as you. He is butterfly." God paused and said, "This Burning Lamp was quite interesting. His power was okay, but his lifespan is almost gone. His body is like a lamp that has almost run out of oil. He has managed to rely on one treasure to get here. Getting into the top 100 was due to his complete reliance on that treasure." "What treasure?" Han Sen asked with curiosity. "It was a knife with cause power," God said. "It looked like a true God-class treasure, but it was a bit weird. It looked like a race weapon, but it was not a race weapon." Buddha has a true God-class treasure? Han Sen did not dare believe this. "If he fights later, you'll get a chance to watch and find out." God shrugged his shoulders. Han Sen did not say anything, but he had made his mind up. When the godless fights ended, he would go see Buddha. He was going to take back his knife blank, the true God-class knife, and the rewards Burning Lamp Alpha would receive. When a man takes revenge, he takes back triple what was taken. He stole my knife blank. Wait. Knife blank. The treasure knife Burning Lamp possesses might have something to do with my knife blank. Han Sen suddenly thought of that. The reason Han Sen did not think of that first was that he did not believe his knife blank could compose the base of a true God treasure. Now that he thought about it, it was too much of a coincidence. No, I must take a look at Burning Lamp's knife and see if it is my knife blank. Han Sen wanted to see Burning Lamp's treasure knife, but Burning Lamp's rank was too low. No one dared to challenge him, so he would not get a chance to see it. What kind of crap rules did God decide on? That old man Burning Lamp is number 84. No way. Han Sen was not happy. If Han Sen was going to challenge Burning Lamp, 84 was too low. It was not worth doing it. There are 10 days left anyway. Let's just wait. Han Sen sat next to God and watched the ranked fights. The first round of the ranked fights was for first place. Very High Leader challenged Golden Growler. It seemed as if he really wanted first place. Han Sen thought it must have been Very High Leader, not stealing first place, which was why he was going to challenge it instead. Out of Very High Leader and Golden Growler, which do you think is stronger? Han Sen asked God. God said, "They are both deified elites. It is hard to tell. Anyone could win, but I'd put my money on Golden Growler. Why? Hearing God support Golden Growler, Han Sun felt relieved. His blood is the best in the entire universe, God said. It is one of the strongest old bloods that has ever existed. Although Golden Growler's blood is not pure, the power of his genes is almost as good as the pure blood. The blood of the very high is not bad, but it is not as good. According to the theory of the advantages and disadvantages of innate genes, Golden Growler is better. But the advantages and disadvantages of one's innate genes cannot decide everything. It still depends on their practice and performance. They have both reached the top, so whoever reigns supreme will still be up for debate. While they were discussing that, Golden Growler and Very High Leader were already atop the space battleground. We are starting with Golden Growler and Very High Leader. That is so exciting. Who do you think is stronger? Very High Leader or Golden Growler? Of course, it will be Golden Growler. He swallowed Ancient Thunder God. He is absolutely invincible. I think it will be Very High Leader. After all, he is the leader of the top race in the universe. Ordinary creatures will not be able to compare to him. The creatures in the universe were discussing the upcoming battle. The green-haired beast looked nervous and said, "Little Mountain Leader is too cocky. He selected first place right away. He should have chosen something lower to fight his way up." The woman did not agree. She shook her head and said, "That will just prove he is weak. If he needed to fight, he would have to fight like an invincible champion. That is how race should be." On the space battleground, the Very High Leader's green clothes looked kind of fairy and bone-like. The expression on the man's face, however, was far too cold. It was like he existed outside the universe, independent of everything. His eyes displayed no emotion. He looked like an emotionless machine. Golden Growler looked like he always did. He came from space. His body was full of gold hair. It was like he was made from gold silk. "I have heard your race can swallow everything. You can eat gods and swallow phoenixes. From the old times, you are at the top of the food chain. It is very rare to find one still living." Very High Leader was not joking around. The more powerful the creature, the more likely they were to destroy themselves. Things had always been that way. The race was invincible in ancient times, so it was rare for them still to have a bloodline continuing. At that time, there were many great races wiped out from the annals of history. Even some of the weaker real dragons and phoenixes were hard to find in that day and age. Hubris could fell the mightiest of creatures. Winning too much could lead to failure. It was the natural balance of the universe. Golden Growler was not in the mood to talk about the rising and falling of civilizations. He opened his mouth like a lion that swallows the sky. He tried to swallow Very High Leader. Suddenly, the whole of space was covered by Golden Growler's big mouth. His mouth created a scary vortex that generated a very scary sucking power. Even true God-class beings could not repel the force of the suction. Ancient Thunder God was swallowed by Golden Growler this way. Right now, Golden Growler was doing the same trick. He was going to swallow Very High Leader too. Very High Leader's expression did not change. The power in his body did not change. It was like he had combined with the universe and space at large. He raised his hands like he was flipping the entire universe upside down. Golden Growler had his mouth wide open. He could swallow the sky, yet he somehow landed on Very High Leader's hands. It was not just Golden Growler either. Even the whole of space was landing in Very High Leader's hand. Golden Growler was just a part of it. 2869 Swapping the sky and changing the ground. Just using a hand to flip space and changing fate is very powerful. Han Sun felt a chill while watching this. He was suspicious about this Very High Leader being the person he went back in time to see. The performance gave people different feelings. The Very High Sense practiced sky and men combined together at an extreme level. It won't just flip space. It can even swap galaxies, change the sky, and swap the ground. It is not difficult, but no one of the Very High has reached that level before. People can swap a little planet, but changing the universe's power is impossible. God paused and went on to say, "For the Very High to be able to practice to this level is something very rare to see in their history." Concentrating space into his hands, Even god spirits like Sky Armor God could not do something similar. How do we break that power? Han Sen asked. He had never seen power like this before, so he did not know what to do about it. In space, his hands will keep energy flowing, God casually said. There are only two ways to get free. One method has you use your fastest speed to travel faster than a galaxy and escape the danger space. The other method is to blow up that space, thus resulting in nothing tying you up. Just as God said that, a beast's roar shocked the sky and shook the universe. In the space that very high leader had clutched, Golden Growler was getting bigger. In the eyes of the audience, the space very high leader was holding was just the size of a fist. It was actually an area of space. Golden Growler's body was getting bigger. It was filling up that whole space. Then there was a pang sound. A scary gold body blew up the space inside very high leader's hands. It broke out from the palm, becoming an extremely scary giant gold giant beast. The planets next to them were as small as a water drop. Roar! Golden Growler roared. The whole of the God Geno list was shaking. The audience's hearts were shocked. They felt the roar exhibit an aura of murder and rage. The creatures without any courage felt their legs go weak. They fell. The next second, Golden Growler opened its mouth at Very High Leader. Very High Leader was so tiny next to Golden Growler. There was no way he was going to block the big, scary beast's attack. Very High Leader's expression did not change. His hands came together and started spinning. Then something unbelievable happened. It was like Golden Growler's lower body had a spinning wheel. Its body weirdly turned 180 degrees. The big mouth that was going to Very High Leader changed direction. Golden Growler turned around to bite him again. But Very High Leader spun his hands. Suddenly the sky and the earth swapped. He and Golden Growler swapped positions in space, enabling Golden Growler's biting power to miss. Many creatures watching the fight were frozen, which included Han Senator. This method to swap the sky and change the ground had never been heard of before. It is no wonder the Very High is the #1 race in the big universe. This method is like God. I would say this is stronger than God. Sky Armor God, who was killed by Dollar, was nothing much. He was not as powerful as Very High Leader. Not bad. Not bad. Very High Leader is the strongest person in the universe. That Golden Growler only has invincible giant power. Is he going to be trapped by Very High Leader? Upon seeing this, Han Sen was very shocked. Very High Leader's skills were similar to his Dongxian area, but Very High Leader's power far exceeded his strength. Han Sen was able to learn something from Very High Leader's skill. Very High Leader being able to do this makes my control of the universal cogwheels more detailed. I should be able to do the same, but his method is obviously supported by a Geno art. I do not have a Geno art. If I am just going to have to explore this on my own, it will be kind of annoying. Han Sen felt very conflicted about this. He hoped that Very High Leader would perform this a few more times, so he could learn the techniques he needed to. He also wanted Golden Growler to find a way to break it. Otherwise, being played like that was useless, even if one did have a lot of power. To be able to practice Very High Sense to this extreme, Very High Leader is not too bad. God seemed to admire the spectacle, but that power clearly did not surprise him. Han Sen's heart jumped. He looked at God and asked, "Why do I think Very High Leader is more powerful than Sky Armor God? Is it an illusion?" God laughed. "It is not an illusion." Sky Armor God wanted his God personality back. He forced himself to combine with Deep Abyss Knight, who was only a butterfly. When Sky Armor God combined with him, he forced it to true God class. At the end of the day, Deep Abyss Knight's body was not enough. Also, Deep Abyss Knight's abilities were different from Sky Armor God's. It was hard for Sky Armor God to use all of his power. If he combined the true God class with a body of the same element, it would have been far more difficult for you to win. But talking about real power here, Very High Leader might not be weaker than Sky Armor God. To see which is greater, you would have to wait for Very High Leader to go to the Geno Hall. He will have to battle Sky Armor God to find out. After God said all that, Han Sen felt nervous. Golden Growler's body and power looked very mighty. He was almost invincible. He was much stronger than Han Sen and Han Sen's body now. Now he was unable to touch Very High Leader. It did not matter how strong he was. Golden Growler kept trying to consume Very High Leader, who kept using his skills to change the sky and swap the ground. Very High Leader did not move an inch, but Golden Growler was not even able to ruffle his clothing. Upon seeing this, Zhang Xiandao complimentarily said, "This old man is getting stronger." "After all, he is Very High Leader," the woman said. "It is not a surprise to learn he has this sort of power." "It looks like this will be his final fight," Zhang Xiandao said. "Successful or not, he will be going to the Geno Hall very soon. The Very High have had many people enter the Geno Hall, but none ever come back," the woman said. "Do you think he will be able to return? If I knew that, I would not be just sitting here. I would have gone to the Geno Hall and start killing." Zhang Xiandao sighed and said, "It is a shame that the rules for the top 100 of the Geno God list are so weird. I thought I could fight him, but I can only challenge him once. I am afraid I am not going to find out." Golden Growler kept attacking uselessly, so he stopped jumping. He stood in space, looked at Very High Leader and ceased moving. "You may possess the blood of the Growlers, but you cannot win," Very High Leader coldly said. "Why don't you concede and quit? Why are you waiting? Our little mountain leader never loses." The green-haired beast was angry. He suddenly thought of something and said, "This Very High Leader is, admittedly, quite good. The way he changes the sky and swaps the ground is rare to see in the universe." The woman nearby looked serious. She nodded and said, "The Very High was able to become a high race not just through sheer luck. It looks like Little Mountain Leader has to use that skill. I cannot believe he has to use it in his first fight." 2870 Golden Door. While Han Sun was worried about Golden Growler suddenly opened his mouth. This time, it did not bite in the direction of Very High Leader. Golden Growler's mouth exuded a gold light. Golden lights came out like a hose. Inside that golden light, something else appeared. Han Sun saw the corner of the golden substance. It had some carvings that were both beautiful and weird. When that thing emerged, Han Sun clearly saw it was a door coming out of Golden Growler's mouth. The door looked as if it was made of gold. It was hundreds of feet tall. The door had some weird and mysterious flower symbols. It made people feel scared and have a desire to obey with a magnitude that could not be described. Han Sun did not understand what those flower symbols were like, but the beast head on the door was something Han Sun recognized. It was Golden Growler's face. The golden door was surrounded by a golden halo. One could not see the door frame. The strangest thing about it was that no matter which angle one looked at it from, one only saw the front face of the door. It was like that golden door did not have a back, or its back was blended into the backdrop of space. It was like it was from a different world. Why did Golden Growler's belly have a golden door inside it? Han Sun felt weird. He did not know what the golden door did. Very High Leader frowned as he looked at the golden door. He did not know what it was either. "What is this? Weird. The Growlers are always so violent. I have never heard of one using a treasure before, but Golden Growler is using a treasure. What does this golden door do?" Every creature was discussing its presence. No one had ever seen this golden door before. They were unable to come up with a suitable conclusion. Even the higher races, such as the Extreme King and Very High, could only stare at that door and wonder. They wanted to know what the door did. Dong! When Golden Growler growled, the door's ring was shaken open. It made a deep sound like a hammer. When the door ring was hit open, the golden door made a catch-a sound and opened up a little. Gold light spilled from the slightly ajar door. Everybody's eyes were opened wide. They stared at the ajar door, desperate to see what was inside. The golden door opened slowly. The gap was only enough for a fist. So far, people could only see golden light. Before they could figure it out or see what lay beyond, they suddenly heard Very High Leader make a weird sound. "This is..." Very High Leader stared at the golden door. His expression immediately changed. In the next moment, Very High Leader's body had some weird power that spread like the tide. Everybody thought Very High Leader was going to fight back, but Very High Leader moved his body. He ripped space and exited the space battleground. The whole universe was dead silent. No one believed Very High Leader was willing to concede and leave the Geno God list. Holy crap! What is this golden door? The door did not even open, and yet, Very High Leader was scared away. Yes, I want to know more about that golden door. That is so depressing. Very High Leader quit too fast. Even if he decided to leave, he should have waited until the door was open to let us see what lay beyond it. Everyone was both shocked and depressed. After Very High Leader was gone, Golden Growler opened his mouth and put the golden door away. No one knew what was inside the golden door. That old man was smart, the green-haired beast said with a smile. He looked cocky. Little Mountain Leader is invincible. Hansen was confused. He did not see what was inside the golden door. What could have scared Very High Leader away? Interesting. God looked at Golden Growler with interest, and that was all. Hansen was disappointed to not hear his explanation. That fight made Golden Growler and the Golden Door's name explode across the universe. Just opening it ajar was enough to scare away Very High Leader, was immensely terrifying. After this fight, Golden Growler was already the first rank in the Geno God list. No one was really able to dethrone him. In fact, no one dared to challenge Golden Growler. He had scared off Very High Leader, so that performance was too scary. As some people looked for Very High Leader to request an explanation on what happened, Very High Leader only answered, "Right now, the universe does not have a creature that can fight Golden Growler." After he said that, Golden Growler's title increased even more. It made other creatures even more scared of him. No one dared to challenge Golden Growler. The top rank was supposed to be very popular and competitive, but it was now cold. The rankings below it had become more popular. Hansen Ashok was shocked by the fact that Lulai was ranked 3rd. He challenged Demon Alpha, who was in 4th. This lower-level challenge made people drop their glasses. Everybody was excited about this fight. Lulai was a very mysterious character. He was the biggest black horse, aside from Dollar, in the Geno God list fights. Demon Alpha's killing of Dragon 1 shocked the whole universe. The two of them fighting made everyone concerned. Lulai must be in Blood Legion. Why is he challenging Demon Alpha? Are the people of Blood Legion suspicious about Demon Alpha, and the Shura people? Are they trying to find out who Demon Alpha is? Hansen kept thinking. There was only one possibility. Otherwise, he would not have to lower his level. Hansen thought he could see something in this fight. But Demon Alpha did not even respond to the challenge. He merely gave up. The funnier thing was that after Demon Alpha gave up, his rank increased. She went from 4th to 3rd. The winner Lulai was made 4th. Your rules are so unscientific. Hansen was a bit speechless as he looked at God drinking his tea and chilling. God smiled and asked, "Isn't it interesting?" The challenges had been going on, but the rankings did not change much. That was especially true of the top 10. There were not many changes there. Hansen was watching them for 6 days. One of the top 10 dropped out, but the other 9 remained in the top 10. Some of their positions changed. Hansen waited many days, but no one seemed to challenge Burning Lamp. He was depressed, but then he saw the space battleground flicker with light. Burning Lamp and another name appeared. Someone is challenging Burning Lamp. Hansen was delighted. He looked at the space battleground and saw Burning Lamp enter the space battleground. Hansen did not see him wielding a knife. Another shape took form in the space battleground too. It was the one above Han's Senator. It was number 99. It was a deified xenogeniac called Pluto Peacock. 2871 Pluto Peacock had many black feathers. Its neck in other places had blue feathers and green feathers. Its eyes had some feathers with 2 colors from blue to green. It also had blue eyeballs and green pupils. From what Hansen could tell, Pluto Peacock had reached butterfly class not too long ago. It had become true god class in a recent deathmatch. Its power was not solid yet. It was one of the weaker enemies of the deified fights. So it selected the enemy that was one higher than him. Aside from Pluto Peacock, there were still 2 people lower than it. That was the butterfly class Hansen and Burning Lamp. Hansen had killed a god spirit, which was really scary. Pluto Peacock did not dare do anything to him. It saw the butterfly Burning Lamp at number 84. So it fancied challenging him. Burning Lamp looked dim, but he was not afraid of his opponent. Getting into the top 100 was a mission, that he accomplished well. It would have been great if he could win. Getting number 99 was not too bad for Burning Lamp. After all, reaching position 99 still guaranteed him a true god weapon. Getting a true god weapon for Buddha was the most thing he could do for Buddha in the waning twilight of his life. Burning Lamp was not planning on giving up now. Being at number 84 was better than number 99. Aside from a true god weapon at such a rank, he could obtain a true god material. So Burning Lamp fancied giving it a go. Facing a true god class Pluto Peacock, Burning Lamp did not dare to be careless. He pulled out a knife hidden within his Buddha clothing. The knife looked a bit weird. It had the shape of a knife, but it did not have a blade. It was like it had not been pulled out. Although it had not been pulled out, there was some Buddha light on the body. It was like it was surrounded by a Buddha light. It looked kind of holy. It sort of looks like my knife blank, but it does not look like it. Han Sun could not tell whether it was his knife blank or not. But the Buddha light that came from the knife looked like sky demon power. It seemed as if it possessed some sort of cause power, but it was not so pure like sky demon power. It was mixed with another sort of power. Han Sun looked at God and asked, "Does Buddha have cause powers?" He was not entirely sure what sort of powers Buddha commanded. God laughed. The potential of the Buddha is not too good. It was difficult for them to become a higher race. So they learned a little bit out of every race and compiled it all into their own teachings. It is how they survived. That includes their filling skill. They learned that from one of the dragon's blood skills. There are many situations like this. The Buddha use all sorts of different skills, but none of them are pure. Do they have the cause power from the demons? Han Sun asked. Not exactly, God said. The cause power inside the knife exists independently. It is different from the demons, so that is why I think it is interesting. After all, you do not even know what that knife is, right? Han Sun finally understood. There are too many weird things in this universe. It is perfectly normal for me not to know. God laughed. While they were talking, Pluto Peacock suddenly screamed. The back of the peacock opened. The feathers that looked like eyes released some weird eye light. It made the whole of space turn into a weird green and blue color. It felt as if a scary movie was being filmed. Although Pluto Peacock is just a xenogenic that does not have many geno arts like a high race, its Pluto powers are very special, God said. If he cannot break it, even a true god class would lose. I do not see anything special about it. You make it sound all spooky and powerful. But Burning Lamp is not hurt. Han Sun saw Burning Lamp covered in a green and blue light. He was not hurt. He felt weird too. That is why Pluto powers are so scary, God said. In the universe, isn't there a saying that time is an invisible pig-killing knife? Their underworld god area is from life to death. In the underworld, living creatures turn into dead spirits. Then the underworld leader will consume them. Han Sun was shocked. He used the Dongxian area to look at Pluto Peacock's underworld god area. He saw the weird green and blue light consuming Burning Lamp's body. His cells were turning green and blue. Burning Lamp swung the knife at Pluto Peacock, but Pluto Peacock was invincible. Burning Lamp's knife light was going to touch its body, but the knife went clean through it. He was unable to harm it. Burning Lamp was using many different geno arts, but none of them could touch Pluto Peacock's body. Pluto Peacock was standing in the underworld, with its rear peacock feathers shining an underworld light. After a long time of this, Burning Lamp's skin started to turn into a weird green and blue color. It looked rather transparent. One was able to see his skin and blood vessels on the inside. The longer this went on, the more underworld-like Burning Lamp was looking. He could not do anything to Pluto Peacock. It looks like the knife's cause power is worse than the demon, Han Sun said. It cannot cut off cause power. Although they are cause powers, they are not of the same type, God said. It is like the same types of iron. Some irons are used to make knives, whereas some irons are made to create shields. They are different. What is the function of that knife? Han Sun asked. You will find out if you keep watching, God said with a smile. He did not answer Han Sun's question. Burning Lamp seemed to be suppressed before Pluto Peacock. No matter what geno art he used, he could not hurt Pluto Peacock. His body gradually became more transparent. He was like a blue and green crystal. You could even see the organs inside him. Hansun felt a bit sad. In the past he seemed to be so strong. Burning lamp had even turned him into an ant. Now he was just this. It looks like power really does determine everything, Hansun said with a sigh. Hansun did not believe Burning Lamp would concede so easily. Burning Lamp was a pious individual. If he did not think he could win, he would leave. He would not stay and risk his life. He was now in a terrible position, yet he showed no sign of wanting to give up. He clearly had a plan. Hansun could not figure out how Burning Lamp would triumph over his enemy. From the beginning, up until now, the knife in his hand was not affected by the underworld area. It was still shining with a Buddha light. It was not affected by the underworld lamp. Burning Lamp's body was becoming half empty. Pluto Peacock's eyes flashed. It opened its mouth and started sucking Burning Lamp. Burning Lamp was unable to control his body. He ended up flying toward Pluto Peacock's mouth and was instantly gone. Pluto Peacock swallowed Burning Lamp. It felt so happy that it screamed. It closed up its peacock feathers. The underworld area was gone. When all the audience believed the fight to be over, Pluto Peacock started screaming. Its chest and belly were suddenly cut open. God blood was pouring out. The knife Burning Lamp was holding had a Buddha light. It came out from the wound. 2872 Self-torturing knife. Weird. How has his body recovered already? Hansun was looking at Pluto Peacock's wounds where Burning Lamp came out from. He was shocked by what he had seen. Burning Lamp was in the underworld. Now his body had completely recovered. The blue-green transparent color was gone. According to the theory, Burning Lamp was unable to withstand the underworld god light power. He became part of the underworld. After he became part of the underworld, he was not a threat to Pluto Peacock. He was no longer unable to damage Pluto Peacock's body. Now Burning Lamp had emerged safely. His body had returned to normal. It was like he had never been injured. If Burning Lamp had that power all along, he did not have to go through so much trouble and get swallowed by Pluto Peacock before fighting back. It looks like the problem is the knife. Hansun looked at the knife as he spoke to himself. God, who was near him, continued speaking. It looks like it has something to do with the power of the knife. Otherwise, Burning Lamp would be dead. This knife's power cannot be reverse cause, can it? Hansun asking after thinking for a moment. I do not know, God said. More accurately, it might be a consequence of cause. Pluto Peacock used underworld god light to damage Burning Lamp and later consume him. Everything that was done to Burning Lamp was the cause. Then, that knife could absorb the cause power and turn it into his own power, which could be reversed upon the enemy that created it. If things are like that, then having that knife can make you invincible, Hansun said. No matter how strong the enemy is, the knife will absorb its power and cast it back. No matter how strong the enemy is, you can fight back. That is the theory, but first, you need a body that can withstand such damage. If your body cannot sustain the damage being dealt, you will be killed before the knife can absorb all the power and unleash it. It does not matter how strong the knife is. God laughed. You are right. It is no wonder Burning Lamp can reach the top 100. It all came down to the knife. Hansun stared at the knife with fire in his eyes. He was thinking, no matter if the knife is my blood knife blank or not, when I destroy the Buddha kingdom, I am taking that knife. With my body's fitness and that knife, it might not fare well in the beginning, but I can certainly tackle true gods. Pluto Peacock was heavily injured. It was so angry that it cast underworld area again, but it was too injured. The power of the underworld god area was reduced, and the wounds could not be healed by the underworld. Burning Lamp used his knife to attack the creature's wounds. It made Pluto Peacock very angry, but the wounds were becoming worse. It had no choice but to quit the battle. Burning Lamp won the battle. Hansun thought about the fight that had just ended, and sort of understood how the knife functioned now. Burning Lamp really is a tricky man. That knife can attack any second. He waited until Pluto Peacock swallowed him before attacking. That is a sort of patience not everyone can have. The knife itself would not absorb Burning Lamp's wounds. It required activation from Burning Lamp for the power to be unleashed. That was when the knife absorbed the wounds he had incurred, or the cause power. After all the cause was absorbed, Burning Lamp's body would return to normal again like he was never injured in the first place. The knife that absorbed the cause power could release an attack power that was equal to what had previously been dealt. The knife's power did seem to have its limitations. One could not just use it whenever. It required some time to separate it. Also, Burning Lamp's body was getting more and more wounds. The power the knife could release was able to become stronger. That was why Burning Lamp endured it all the way and enabled himself to be swallowed by Pluto Peacock. It gave back all the damage to Pluto Peacock that it was unable to recover from. Burning Lamp then used the power of the knife. Because the power that had been absorbed was minimal, it did not deal much damage. Just like God had said, the more power the body could endure, the more power the knife was able to release. This is a fucking self-torturing knife. If you do not get hurt, it is not strong. The more you are hurt, the stronger it becomes. Where did Burning Lamp get this knife from? Han Sun could not help but complain. Regardless, it was evident that Burning Lamp had won the match. He kept his rank of 84. The ranking of 84 was not really a rank that others wanted to fight for. Even though Burning Lamp had been swallowed by his enemy, he was able to come back out alive. It made the creatures of a lower rank not dare challenge him. After this fight, no creature dared challenge him anymore. Never mind, I will just let him be happy for a bit. Han Sun did not want to challenge Burning Lamp either. Rank 84 was too low. Han Sun did not have much chance to win by challenging the top 10. If he challenged those in the top 20 to 30, he might have stood a chance. He would have received many rewards. Thus, Han Sun did not risk wasting time by challenging Burning Lamp. Plus, Han Sun was planning a trip to visit the Buddha Kingdom anyway. The more benefits Burning Lamp received now, the more benefits Han Sun would receive after his holiday. So, there was no need for him to disrupt Burning Lamp's ranking now. From Han Sun's perspective, Burning Lamp was now something like an employee of his. So, who should I challenge? Han Sun thought to himself. Although Han Sun really wanted to challenge Demon Alpha, he knew that even if he used all of his power, he might not be able to defeat Demon Alpha. He quickly gave up on the idea. Lu Lai was a member of Blood Legion. Blood Legion had helped Han Sun out in the universe, so he did not want to hurt them either. Regarding Very High Leader, unless Han Sun used Super God Spirit mode, he did not have what it took to fight back. He also gave up on that idea. Han Sun again looked at the top 10. None of them were good to fight. Han Sun also made use of his law eye. Some of them had crime meters, but their crime meters were not high enough to see them dead. Using the law eye against them would not have been an effective tactic. Han Sun kept trying to choose. In the end, he looked at a Xenogeniac ranked 25. It was a Xenogeniac that looked like an elephant. Its name was Mahagod Elephant. Its power seemed to be strong, but its primary power was just a powerful holy light that could heal. Han Sun saw an extreme king wanting to challenge him. He used all sorts of Geno arts to attack the Mahagod Elephant, but the god elephant merely stood where it was without moving. It kept spewing a holy light. Within that holy light, its body was healed faster than it was able to be hurt. In the end, the extreme king fighter was too tired. He ended up conceding. It was such a powerful defensive and healing power. Ordinary true gods could not do anything to it. But it was perfect for Han Senator. He had the Sky Vine Radish God Lance. Its attack power was the best. There was a very high chance of it defeating the Mahagod Elephant. But Han Sun was not in a rush. There were a few more days to go before the challenges ended. Han Sun planned to just sit and watch for now. The Geno God list lights were flickering. 2 ranks lit up. Han Sun glanced at them. One of them was Sky Palace leader Zhang Xiandao. 2873 Han Sun's challenge finally moved. Han Sun quickly looked at the other name. He noticed Zhang Xiandao was challenging Ancient Sacrifice God, who was ranked 6th. Ancient Sacrifice God was one of the ancient gods, and he was the highest ranked person within the ancient gods. Han Sun saw Ancient Sacrifice God fight before. He proved himself to be an incredibly strong true god. He had a mysterious sacrificial power that enabled him to easily defeat a true god deified Xenogeniac that challenged him. Han Sen believed that with ancient sacrifice god's power, his rank could be higher. Han Sen was surprised that Sky Palace leader was willing to challenge ancient sacrifice god. Han Sen thought he would go for a higher-ranked person, such as seeking perfume beast. Sky Palace leader landed in space. He looked like holy winds and bones. People who did not know him would have thought he was like some kind of god fairy. Zhang Xiandao looked at ancient sacrifice god coldly and said, "Ancient sacrifice god, it is time we finish this." Ancient sacrifice god was like a green giant. A bronze tripod was in his hands. He coldly looked at Zhang Xiandao. Suddenly, the bronze tripod in his hands had a strange glow. All the stars in the sky were falling. A river of stars descended. It was all going toward the bronze tripod. It was like the whole universe was being sucked into the bronze tripod. Han Sen once watched ancient sacrifice god battle a true god Xenogeniac. It was sucked into the bronze tripod and was unable to fight back. Zhang Xiandao was in space. He let the stars fall and the suns break. He let them all go past his body, while he did not move an inch. It was like the bronze tripod power did not exist. Ancient sacrifice god, use all the powers you can. Do not leave any regrets. Zhang Xiandao was like a god standing between the sky and the ground. His power was like everything in the world was nothing. Ancient sacrifice god was angry, so he roared. The bronze tripod was glowing with light. The markings on the tripod lit up. Some of the markings were like a bird, whereas others were like a beast. The suns, moons, stars, birds, beasts, fish, flowers, grass, trees, wood, all the substances were becoming abstract symbols on the tripod. As those symbols brightened, the entire universe seemed to have some sort of power that went toward the bronze tripod. It made the power of the bronze tripod stronger and stronger. It can use the power of the universe. Ancient sacrifice god is so scary. Han Sen was so scared. God looked at ancient sacrifice god with keen interest. Ancient gods are born deifieds. Their talents are the highest out of the high races, but their growth is the least out of all races. In history they are the oldest race. They are all born deified. Yet today they are still like this. Nothing has improved much. They are already true god class, Han Sen said. How many more breakthroughs do you think they can achieve? Getting into the Jing God Hall? God shook his head. He did not explain. He went on to say, "You cannot blame the ancient gods. Other creatures have countless steps to climb, whereas they only have 2 or 3 steps. It is normal for them to ascend so slowly." The bronze tripod was buffed by everything in the universe. The power was becoming scarier. Ancient sacrifice god was roaring. He raised the tripod in his hands. The tripod made some roaring sounds like a dragon or a tiger. At the same time, it released a scary light. It became a beam of light firing into the sky. Inside the beam of light, Han Sen saw a weird shadow flashing. It was like a god spirit grabbing Sky Palace leader in space. That shadow was very strong. It was the strongest Han Sen had ever seen in a god fight before. Even when Dragon 1 used his dragon race weapon, the Blood Dragon Rulers, which was 7 true gods combined into one mode, it was not as scary as this beam of light in the shadow. The light shadow gave Han Sen the feeling of a god spirit that could destroy the world. It had an incredible power that was terrifying. Even with Han Sen's power and willpower, it made him feel very small. Many years have passed, yet you still only use this trick. Sky Palace leader looked at the light shadow with disdain. A finger moved. A light spell was cast. It latched onto the giant palm from the shadow. Roar. The light shadow touched the light spell. The palm went back. It made a silent roar as if something was electrified. It was not over yet. The light spell stuck to the light shadow's palm. The light grew brighter. It suppressed the light shadow and pillar of light. When the light spell power became stronger, the holy power suppressed the beam of light and light shadow. It forced them back into the bronze tripod. No matter how that light shadow roared, he still could not stop it. Very powerful sky spell, and very power sky leader. Han Sen could not help but compliment him. Sky Palace's original gene killing spell was something Han Sen had seen before. How Sky Palace leader used it surprised him. Of course, the main part of it was the fact that Sky Palace leader was too strong. The power he commanded was as high as a true god could be. In the next second, The light spell landed on the tripod. No matter how much power ancient sacrifice god used, it was like the bronze tripod had been suppressed by a mountain. He could not release any power. As the light spell grew stronger, the bronze tripod became more suppressed. Ancient sacrifice god seemed incapable of moving the bronze tripod. His arms were starting to bend. Roar! Ancient sacrifice god madly roared, but he could not stop the tripod from failing. In the end, the bronze tripod fell out of his hands and flew into space. Zhang Xiandao waved his sleeves and put the bronze tripod in them. He coldly said, "Sacrifice god bronze can lend me this for 1,000 years as interest." Ancient sacrifice god was furious. His bronze body shone brightly, making him seem like a glowing sky giant. He ripped through space toward Zhang Xiandao. Zhang Xiandao waved his sleeves. Ancient sacrifice god's bronze body, which looked like it could support the sky and ground, was hit into space. He fell into a rip in space and disappeared. 1,000 years later, you may come and collect your sacrifice bronze tripod from Sky Palace. After Sky Palace leader said that, he turned around. All the creatures were in immense shock. He is so powerful, Hansen thought. He had to admit that Sky Palace leader had what it took to be cool. His powers and method were similar to very high leader. Even God complimented him. Very good Sky Zhang Xiandao. The next challenge was boring, because of Zhang Xuandao's match. All the creatures were still talking about the fight between Zhang Xiandao and ancient sacrifice god. People thought that if the challenges were not one-chance affairs, Zhang Xuandao's rank could have been higher. He might have even replaced very high leader to become second. More interesting fights occurred over the next few days, but none were as good as Zhang Xuandao's fight. They were nothing worth focusing on. Seeing that there was only one day of challenges left, Hansen finally used his challenge. His target was going to be Mahagod Elephant. 2874 Mahagod Elephant. Hansen hastily appeared on the space battleground. He saw a red, giant elephant also appear across the distance of space between them. That giant elephant was all red. Its body had a burning red flame. If one went to feel it, one would notice that the blaze did not have a temperature. Roar! Mahagod elephant's trunk lifted. The crystal-looking fiery, crystal stone elephant teeth were also lifted. Hansen reached out with his hand and had his sky vine radish god lance appear in his arms. In the next second, Hansen teleported directly before the Mahagod elephant. The sky vine radish god lance was thrust into Mahagod elephant's flesh. The tip of the lance plunged into the elephant's tough skin. As Hansen pushed it in, he felt the muscles inside the elephant were like beef tendons. They were very tough. The sky vine radish god lance only had its tip pierced into it. It was difficult trying to push it deeper in. That's a very tough body. No wonder it was able to reach the top 20 as a true god xenogeneic. Hansen was shocked. Before the elephant's trunk came at him, Hansen pulled the lance back and leaped away. Mahagod elephant had a massive amount of power. He was able to hit a true god body with a might other true gods would not even attempt to block. Hansen was only a butterfly, so he did not want to get hit. After the sky vine radish god lance was pulled out, the wounds did not drip with god blood. A sapling was growing, but it did not grow fast. The god elephant's red lights were burning. The wound where the sapling had appeared quickly healed. The saplings were like little tufts of grass weaseling their way through a wall stone. They tried their best to squeeze through the gaps. It was so hard that it was like fighting the sky. They did not get squeezed to death, but it was hard for them to grow. If one hit won't work, then I will have to give it many more. Hansen's body flashed like a ghost. He kept appearing in front, at its back, and to the left and right of the god elephant. At the same time, the sky vine radish god lance in his hands flashed like thunder. It kept striking the god elephant's flesh. Before the god elephant's elephant trunk got close, Hansen could easily flash and bolt over to another location. There was infinite power when using the sky vine radish god lance. It left one hole, and another hole on the god elephant. Every hole creating saplings growing from the wounds. Even though the god elephant's flesh was extremely sturdy, and it was running under the bounty of the powerful healing fires, Its body had many saplings growing all over it like a layer of green hair. But the saplings were having great difficulty growing. They were squeezed by the god elephant's flesh, almost to the point of death. Han Sen thought, any true god xenogenic in the top 100 is hard to deal with. If I could become true god, I could use my own power to rip its body to shreds before it healed once. Now I need the Sky Vine Radish God Lance power. Even so, it is still really difficult. His hands did not stop. The lance's green lightning kept striking the god elephant's body. It left many saplings behind in its wake. It looked like he had the advantage, but it was still hard to damage the god elephant. Maha God Elephant's healing power is too effective. It is no wonder it is the xenogenic that represents life. Even god personality armaments cannot kill it. It looks like Dollar is in trouble. He could pick anyone, yet he decided to challenge the Maha God Elephant. If he selected a higher rank xenogenic, he would have killed it already. The audience was talking. Sky Palace leader was laughing and saying, it looks like Dollar underestimated Maha God Elephant's defense and healing powers. This is the xenogenic with the best life element. Although the god personality armament is a weapon, it is plant-based. Normal creatures might be able to be killed easily by it, but killing the Maha God Elephant with it will not be easy. It is a shame the Maha God Elephant is very grumpy and proud, the woman said with a sigh. If we could tame it to protect the palace, we could have a true god join our forces. Although that guy is living in ancient god's holy place, it has been living in the sand lake, Sky Palace leader said with a laugh. No one can do anything there. Even the ancient gods cannot do anything there. Fortunately, its healing power is strong and supremely powerful, the woman said. It is very clumsy though. It can easily be tricked by genoarts. It is good enough to be a guard, but not enough to be a warrior. Maybe not. With it here, it will be like a needle in the sea. It would be hard for it to die. It would be very useful for fighting in a xenogenic space. Sky Palace leader sighed and said, but it keeps guarding Sand River. It won't work for anyone. Han Sen realized he had underestimated Maha God Elephant's power. Killing it with the Sky Vine Radish God Lance was not easy. If Han Sen had selected it, he was prepared. He retreated and stopped attacking Maha God Elephant. He is so strong. Even Dollar, who has a god personality armament, cannot do anything. Is he going to give up? I do not think so. Dollar still has that eye skill that judged Sky Armor God. You are right. It looks like we can see the scary judgment power again. Everyone wanted Han Sen to use the Eye of Law. Han Sen had seen that although the Maha God Elephant looked very red, in the Eye of the Law, it was white like a sheet of paper. It did not have any level of crime. Using the law, I would not work on it. Maha God Elephant saw Han Sen leave, but it was not planning on chasing him. He provoked him by raising its trunk and screaming a lot of taunting noises. Its body was full of green saplings, but it did not care. It was like the saplings did not affect him. Han Sen laughed. You were cocky too soon. Han Sen put the Sky Vine Radish God Lance away. His thumb and middle finger on his right hand came together. A gold light was shining in between them. It created a gold coin. Han Sen was holding a coin. He did not move. He watched the number on the coin keep jumping up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. As the number on the coins jumped, Han Sen's presence became scarier. It was like he was a bomb brewing and about to explode. Maha God Elephant realized something might have been wrong. It roared and used its forelegs to run at Han Senator at the same time. Its elephant trunk was like a pillar that opened the sky. It created a scary red light that tried to break Han Senator. Seeing Maha God Elephant in front of him, Han Sen did not dare use his own body to block its attack. Maha God Elephant suddenly bounced the coin away. Bzzd. The coin created some gold light in space. It hit Maha God Elephant's forehead. It gathered up all the way to 13 times the power. At that point, the coin was like a heavy hammer. It shook the Maha God Elephant, which was running away. Han Sen thought, it is a shame I am just butterfly. If I was true god, that would have been saving money times 13. It would turn his body into dust. Maha God Elephant madly roared. It wanted to run at Han Sun again. It was too slow. It was like it was carrying a mountain. 2875 Final Challenge. A coin was shining on Maha God Elephant's head. It was like Maha God Elephant was being suppressed by an entire mountain. It was not that fast before, but it was even slower now. Even with Han Sen's power magnified to 13, it still wasn't enough to suppress Maha God Elephant. The God Elephant's tusks were still raised. The beast was trying to skewer Han Sr. You still won't concede. Han Sun laughed. He cast a golden light, which landed on the God Elephant. It made the number on the coin on the Maha God Elephant's forehead increase a bit. It went from 13 to 14. The God Elephant's body became heavier. It was harder for it to walk. Let's see how many numbers it can endure. Han Sun moved his finger again. A gold light was fired out. It made Maha God Elephant's forehead increase again. Han Sun clicked his fingers 10 times. The numbers on the coin increased more and more. Maha God Elephant forced itself to run at Han Sun, but it could not take the pressure of the coins. Before it ran in front of Han Sun, it fell down. It fell from space. It fell onto a planet. It was like an asteroid. It blew a big circular hole in the planet. The land was crushed on that planet. A volcanic eruption started everywhere. Fire, light, and dust enveloped the planet. Maha God Elephant was suppressed on the planet. Its limbs tried using strength to fly. When one of its legs was lifted, the other 3 legs were still on the ground. The ground broke. The God Elephant could not stand. It fell on the floor. The God Elephant kept struggling, but the suppressive powers of the coin were too much for it to bear. No matter what it tried, it was unable to get up. The rocks beneath its feet kept cracking. Its body started to sink into the ground. Boom! The planet was blown up by the God Elephant. The God Elephant fell through and out of the planet, making its body continue falling through space. It was getting further and further from Han Sr. Roar. The God Elephant madly roared. It stared at Han Senator in the end. It had no choice but to concede and leave space. That coin can keep gathering up power, and the power is still there. But this is different from the saving power skill. That is Dollar's true power. He did not need a God personality armament to suppress the true God class Maha God Elephant. What kind of Geno art is that? It was used by Dollar, who is Butterfly, yet the Maha God Elephant was unable to tackle it. Did you see it? Who said Dollar only depended on law powers, or the God personality armament? He did not need those two to suppress a true God. Interesting Geno art. That was God's comment. Han Sen's victory did not generate much excitement. After all, people had seen crazier fights before. His fight was not that exciting. It was just a nice display of saving money that incited the curiosity of others. It was the last day of the ranked fights. The rankings were pretty much still. Everyone knew about the top 10. Ancient Sacrifice God dropped out of the top 10 due to Sky Palace leader, but he still had one opportunity for challenge. After the challenge, he ended up back in the top 10. At the top of the list, unmoved, was Golden Growler. Very High Leader was second. Demon Alpha was third. Lulai was fourth. The Xenogeniac called Seeking Perfume Beast was fifth. Sky Palace's Zhang Xiandao was sixth. Extreme Kings by Wu Chang was seventh. A Xenogeniac called Empty Dragon King was eighth. Ancient Sacrifice God had made a comeback to claim ninth. Underworld Ghost was 10th. Underworld Ghost was quite strange. He was invisible. No one was able to tell what he looked like, and no one knew what Xenogeniac or race he belonged to. The Xenogeniacs that challenged him could never see him. Thus they were beaten. As for Bai Wuchang from the Extreme King, Han Sun heard from Baoing that he was actually at a level higher than Bai King. He was the generation's scariest elite from the Bai family. The ranked fights were almost done. There could not be any drastic changes. Han Sun was able to calmly wait for the fights to be over before claiming his rewards. Number 25 was able to claim a random True God weapon and get 4 random True God materials. In addition to that, there was a God Spirit stamp. As for what the God Spirit stamp meant or did, Han Sun did not know. What does the God Spirit stamp do? Han Sun asked God. You can use it to enter the Geno Hall's gate, God said. You can enter the Geno Hall safely one time. Can I go to Sky Armor God's Hall? Han Sen asked. Of course, God said with a nod. Aside from Sky Armor God's God Temple, can I go anywhere else? Han Sen asked. Han Sen had evil Lotus God's son's God personality. If he had the chance, Han Sen wanted to get another God personality armament. No. Each God spirit stamp only gives you one chance. God laughed. He pointed at Golden Growler, who was number 1, and said, But you can go challenge him. If you beat him and earn the God spirit seat, you can go anywhere in the Geno Hall. You will not be restricted. He managed to scare off Very High Leader, so why would I even bother trying? Han Sen asked with a lift of his lips. Even if Han Sen could beat him, he did not want to fight Golden Growler. God said it like a joke anyway, so he did not say anything. Everyone thought the Geno God list fights were over. There should not have been any more changes, but the people still craved for more. After all, ordinary creatures would never see deified elites in this manner again. Even if they came across them in the wild, they would not dare look at them. They would be too scared to do so. During the Geno God list fights, the deified creatures were being killed like dogs. These battles had the kind of excitement ordinary fights never managed to generate. Plus, watching deified elites fight inspired ordinary creatures to grow and better themselves. Just feeling their emotions and the wills of the deified battlers made the lower-level creatures understand something. It is over. I wonder when the next Geno God list fight will start. I hope I can see it every year. Stop dreaming. Deified elites do not have the time to fight every day. We might not even have one every 100 years. There will probably be a gap that is even greater than the Geno being scroll. While everyone was talking, 2 names suddenly lit up on the Geno God list. There is a challenger. At this time, who are the challengers? Everyone was shocked and happy. They looked at the Geno God list and saw Golden Growler's name light up. Holy shit! Golden Growler is challenging. He is the first. Who is he challenging? Yeah, who is he challenging? Everyone was confused. They kept looking at the list trying to find out who Golden Growler sought to challenge. Dollar. Golden Growler wants to challenge Dollar. Oh my god! What is Golden Growler doing? Why does he want to challenge Dollar now? On Empty Mountain, the green-haired beast almost passed out in anger. He was stomping his feet. Little Mountain Leader. What is Little Mountain Leader doing? Why is he challenging him? If Dollar concedes, that means he just gave out first place. God was also surprised. He looked at Golden Growler, and then at Han Senator. He looked confused. Chapter 2876. The scariest hit. Han Sen was also a little shocked. Does Little Gold recognize me? How much hatred is in there? Now he has selected to challenge Dollar at this time. What is the grudge that must exist between Golden Growler and Dollar? Golden Growlers has first place, yet he still wants to challenge Dollar. If Dollar concedes in the match, he can achieve first place, right? Wouldn't an elite have the dignity not to do that? Dollar won't just give up before at least trying to fight. That is hard to tell. Didn't Demon Alpha concede directly to become third place? People were so excited. They were talking ravenously amongst each other. They were shocked that Golden Growler was doing this challenge. Golden Growler appeared on the space battleground. He stood atop a planet. It looked like he was quietly waiting for the fight to begin. People tried to guess and see if Dollar was willing to accept and join the fight, or just concede and reach first place. Suddenly, a shadow entered the space battleground. It was Dollar. He has accepted the fight. He really accepted the fight. The challenge time is over. This will be the final fight. Although Dollar is strong and has that God personality armament, I think Golden Growler is stronger. I think so too. After all, Dollar is just butterfly class. Golden Growler easily managed to scare off Very High Leader. Even Very High Leader said no creature in the universe can defeat Golden Growler. And I think he is right. The Thousand Treasury was streaming this. They were saying similar things. Although what happened inside the Geno God list could not be streamed or recorded, ordinary creatures did not understand high-level deifieds. Sometimes they did not understand the fights between deified elites. The Thousand Treasury used words to describe things. There were 2,000 treasury deifieds, explaining the fights and history of deified elite battlers. Of course, the Thousand Treasury capitalized on it all by establishing a gambling station. The two speakers would talk about who would win and who would lose. Golden Growler used his first-rank identity to challenge Dollar. A deified explained. That is surprising. Judging from what we have seen, Dollar might stand a lower chance against him. If Golden Growler wins this fight, he will lose his first place. It is hard to predict what the result might look like. Another deified explained things too. He said Dollar accepted the fight. No matter who wins or who loses, this will be the most exciting match out of all the Geno Godless fights. Yes, let's not talk about their grudges. It is very hard to predict who will end up in first place. If you are interested, you can come put a bet down with the Thousand Treasuries gambling station. The window for putting down your bets will be closing any second now. So, do not miss this final call, people. With that being said, it all comes down to power. Golden Growler should be able to beat Dollar. With many races of the universe watching, Han Sun landed on Golden Growler's planet. A man and a beast looked at each other, on a grass field full of yellow sand. Very exciting, the commentator excitedly said. Two scary deifieds are staring at each other. They are going to launch the scariest attacks ever. Golden Growler is strong, but Dollar is not weak. He is mysterious. His amazing Geno arts, and the Geno God armaments he wields are quite shocking. It will be hard to tell which one of them wins. The fight is going to begin. After the commentator's speech, Golden Growler and Han Sun became two invincible elites. They were fighting each other with power. Whenever they moved their hands, it was time to determine the winner. Another commentator tried his hardest to explain the situation. People, please do not think they are only staring at each other. In fact, a silent will fight has begun. If one of their fates has a flaw, they will receive a deadly attack. The two commentators were deified, but they were only primitive. Their talents had been decided only through Geno fluids. Their power was fairly regular. Their main job was to earn money for the Thousand Treasury. Of course, even now that was their ultimate goal. Golden Growler moved. He is running at Dollar. He is not going quickly, but every step of his had the power to step on stars. They are like the footsteps that not even the sky nor gods can stop. God, it looks like the whole of space is moving with him. How scary is this attack? The commentator was trying to hype it up. With all the creatures hearing the commentator, they could see Golden Growler running at Dollar. They grew nervous. They were not sure what sort of attack Golden Growler was going to unleash. It could be one hit that killed Dollar. Very fast. Even faster. Even faster again. It feels like I can see ripples in space. It is no wonder Golden Growler is an invincible elite that very high leader could not even go against. He gathers up power to the highest level that won't leak. He seems very light. When he strikes, the sky will break, and the ground will crack. Everyone, please be prepared. Do not get shocked by Golden Growler's power later, and have it affect your will. Ah! Golden Growler jumped. It seems normal, but the trail of his body is so good that you cannot imagine it. It has blocked every way Dollar can go. Dollar cannot fall back. Of course, Dollar is standing there not moving. With Golden Growler's perfect attack, he cannot retreat. Maybe the space around Dollar is sealed up. He cannot move. Will he be eaten by Golden Growler? We forgot a question. If Dollar is eaten by Golden Growler, and will no longer exist, who will obtain first place? Would it still be Golden Growler? The commentator stood up with excitement. The other commentator started screaming. He moved. Dollar finally moved. He has put out his hands. They are so straight yet so crooked. One is up and one is down. It has the most mysterious knowledge of the universe that cannot be imagined. It has reached a level of return to origin. We underestimated Dollar. He is the top class in the universe. This attack is going to be the first. Everyone in the universe felt their eyes open wide. They were seeing the scariest Xenogeneic and the most mysterious Xenogeneic in the Geno God list get together. They were nervous. Every creature was guessing who would win when they met up. So close. So close. The strongest hit. The scariest hit. They finally. The commentator was excitedly shouted. His entire body was in an orgasmic mode. Every creature in the universe was excited by his speech. Suddenly, the very excited commentator stopped talking. The two commentators were petrified. It was like they were no longer able to speak. It was not just them. Every being in the universe watching this fight suddenly froze. They saw what happened on the space battleground, and it had made their mouths turn into an zero shape. They saw Golden Growler touch Han Sen's body. His claws went on Dollar's shoulders, but he did not open his mouth to eat Dollar. He used his head to rub Dollar's cheek like a house cat. Dollar was holding Golden Growler. He stroked his head. He looked like he was playing with his own pet. Chapter 2877 Losing or Winning. The universe was dead silent. All of the creatures were watching Dollar stroke Golden Growler's head. They could not believe it was the same Golden Growler who had scared off Very High Leader. Little Mountain Leader, what is it doing? The green-haired beast's jaw nearly dropped to the floor. After he realized what was going on, he madly stomped his feet and screamed. How dare he touch Little Mountain Leader's head? I am going to destroy his dirty fingers. The woman nearby had only just realized what was going on. She looked at the green-haired beast seriously and said, When you brought Little Mountain Leader back, it already had a lower race companion. Was that low race person Dollar? No, it was a crystallizer. He was of a different race to this xenogeneic. There is no way it was this guy who could level up so quickly. But, the green-haired beast hesitated. But what? The woman asked with a frown. That crystallizer is now quite famous in the universe, the green-haired beast said. It was Han Sun, who is in Space Garden now. Han Sun? The woman asked with shock. After a deep thought she said, It's him. Right now the universe was all messed up. The two of them were not able to speak anymore. They had not expected things to take such a drastic turn. What is going on? Why does Golden Growler look like Dollar's pet? Dollar? Golden Growler? They must have some sort of connection. I should have thought about that. No way. The Geno God lists number 1 is Dollar's pet? It was not just ordinary creatures feeling this way. Even the old antiques, who had hidden away in the dark, and the higher races all had strange expressions. The woman in Sky Palace was also shocked. Who is this Dollar? Empty Mountain's Golden Growler is treating him like this. The Growlers were always very cruel and cold. They never got close to outsiders. Sky Palace leader thought. Dollar is very special. He has a god personality armament, law power, and a relationship with Golden Growler. I wonder what faction created such a person. In the Extreme King Garden, God watched Han Sun and Golden Growler with great interest. I did not expect you to be this interesting. You have surpassed my expectations. This was certainly not a wasted trip. Golden Growler's claws came off of Han Sen's shoulders. It opened its mouth and spat something into Han Sen's hands. Han Sen picked it up and had a look. It was a crystal body that had been generated by thunder. It looked like countless lightning bolts were broiling around inside it. It was like a mini thunder universe. Is this ancient thunder god's ancient god origin? Han Sen recognized what he had been given. He already had ancient water god's origin. It looked very similar. It was just this new one was a thunder element whereas the other one was water-based. Roar! Little Gold growled at Han Senator Han Sun, and Little Gold had a special connection similar to Little Angel. They were Han Sen's beast souls. Their bodies had been rebuilt to become genuine life forms that existed independently. Yet they still had a connection to Han Sun, who could understand their thoughts. Little Gold had recognized Han Sun because of that connection. Little Gold was saying he wanted to give Han Sun the ancient thunder god origin, so he could pass it on to Little Silver. He said it would help Little Silver a lot. So this was not for me after all? Han Sun felt a little touched. He had not expected Golden Growler to remember Little Silver. He reached out his hand and stroked its head. In the eyes of others, this scene had them seeing Golden Growler merrily swinging its tail like a hunting dog having captured prey to give to its master. Oh my god. Dollar can't actually be Golden Growler's master, can he? If things are really like that, then that is too scary. A pet has suppressed the whole universe and claimed the no. One spot on the Geno God list. It really does seem like things are that way. Empty Mountain's green-haired beast was as mad as a lunatic. He kept stomping around. He wanted to kill Dollar in 180 of his generations. You should go now. I will look for you in Empty Mountain. Han's son patted Golden Growler on the head and allowed it to exit the space battleground. In that way, Golden Growler was able to keep first place. Golden Growler shook its head and growled. Hansen knew what he meant. Golden Growler was going to give first place to Han. Senator Han's son was going to reject it. But Golden Growler growled at him and lowered its body. It wanted Han's son to ride him. Dollar! How dare you! The green-haired beast yelled. It was like a volcano eruption. He slapped the floor, making Empty Mountain shake. Every other creature reacted by falling to the ground in fear. Everybody was watching Han's son ride Golden Growler's back. Suddenly, Golden Growler ripped space and exited the Geno God list. What is going on? Why did they leave the space battleground together? Who lost? All of the audience was in shock. They had no idea what was going on. Quick, look at the Geno God list. Dollar is on top. It looks like Dollar won. No. Dollar won. People started talking nonsense. Everybody turned to look at the Geno God list. The Geno God list's top place was now showing Dollar instead of Golden Growler, which had taken Hansen's previous position of number 25. Dollar. He is awesome. He let his pet get first place, so he could be given it back. If you have what it takes, you can have a Golden Growler for a pet. I think only Dollar has what it takes to do that. In the universe, there is no other Golden Growler. While everyone was talking, Golden Growler took Han's son out of the Geno God list. They did not teleport back to where they were. They were nearby in space, floating next to the Geno God list. Why? Everyone was wondering why Golden Growler and Han's son had not teleported away. Suddenly, Golden Growler roared to the sky. Its body had a golden light that was like a flood. It went into the sky to tear up space. Under Golden Growler's power, space had a crack. An old godly temple appeared. It was the Geno Hall. What is going on? I do not think the Geno God list fights are over yet. Are they giving out the prizes already? Prize your ass. Did you not see Golden Growler rip space and summon the Geno Hall? They are going to the Geno Hall. Holy shit. They are going to the Geno Hall? Can he do that? Ancient Water God failed not too long ago. It gave Dollar first place. It gave up the chance to become a God spirit. The only chance to become a God spirit is to enter the Geno Hall. That is expected. When the Geno Hall descended, the whole universe felt like it went dim. Only the Geno Hall was shining with holy light. It was slowly coming out from space. Chapter 2878, Getting into the Geno Hall. Han's son was on the Geno God list. He understood what Golden Growler meant. Thus, he conceded and gained the Geno God list's first place position. Although he knew Golden Growler wanted him to go to the Geno Hall and become a God spirit, seeing the Geno Hall instantly made him a bit worried. The scene of Ancient Water God attacking the Geno Hall was still fresh in his mind. If Golden Growler failed, he would probably end up suffering a similar fate. Little Mountain Leader. He is going to the Geno Hall alone. The green-haired beast and the woman looked worried. The old Mountain Leader had never made it back from the Geno Hall. Although Golden Growler's power was stronger than the old Mountain Leader, they could not measure whether or not Golden Growler would make it back. Little Mountain Leader is rushing things a bit. How can he go to the Geno Hall now? It's that Dollar's fault. If Little Mountain Leader did not lose first place because of him, he would not have to go to the Geno Hall. The green-haired beast was furious. He was also very nervous because of his inability to do anything. If things are this way, we have no choice but to wait and hope for Little Mountain Leader's return, the woman said with a sigh. In space, the Geno Hall had already been revealed. The doors that provided access were still closed tight. They did not look like they were going to open. Roar! Golden Growler suddenly roared again. The gold light turned him into a gold giant beast. It forcefully struck the gate of the Geno Hall. Boom! The doors were being attacked by the gold light, and opened a little. It enabled gold light to seep out from inside the hall. The light was warm. It shone with a vibrant halo. Many scary feelings were coming out from the door. It made the many people and creatures of the universe terrified. Creatures with low wills were already on the ground, not daring to look at the Geno Hall's doors. It looks like little gold is stronger than ancient water god. It has just pushed the door open, but Han's son was riding atop Golden Growler's back. He stared at the door that had opened a little with an expression of worry. Ancient water god had also pushed open the Geno Hall doors, but a scary hand had crushed him. Han's son was scared of the master of that hand. Golden Growler was carrying Han's senator. He stepped toward the doors of the Geno Hall. The gold light kept spilling and firing into the sky. They kept hitting the doors of the Geno Hall. The more times the gold light hit, the wider the opening of doors of the Geno Hall became. They were opening wider. God light was shining inside. Aside from the god light, one was not able to see anything else. Boom! When Golden Growler went to the Geno Hall's doors, they completely opened. The god light inside shone across the whole universe. It was now daytime in the entire universe. Suddenly, Han's son looked frozen. He saw a shadow appear behind the open doors. That shadow was burning white. It looked as if it was made of god light. The being's face looked like it belonged to the human sky, or extreme king race, but the god light was too shiny. All Han's son was able to see was its silhouette. Based on the shape of the silhouette, it appeared to be a woman. When ancient water god attacked the Geno Hall, he was suppressed by a woman's hand. If the hand belonged to the coming shadow, her hand was one that could kill ancient water god. With that threat on the approach, one could imagine how scary she was. The shadow stood near the open doors. It did not walk out. Although it was just a silhouette with its face obscured, Han's son felt that the shadow was looking at him and Golden Growler. Golden Growler's eyes looked golden. It stared at the shadow and looked as if it was going to swallow someone. It walked closer to the shadow. Number 1 on the Geno God list. Please level up to God Spirit and go to the hall. The light silhouette had a woman's voice. Her tone did not have a single ounce of emotion in it. Han's son frowned. Before he said anything, Golden Growler quietly growled. He laid down as if he was signaling for Han's son to disembark. Han's son got off of Golden Growler's back. He was holding Golden Growler's back while he whispered in its ear. "Are you okay?" Roar. Golden Growler roared. It seemed to try and comfort Han's son and let him know that things were under control. Han's son stepped away and watched Golden Growler raise its head. He then went toward the Geno Hall's doors. The light shadow saw Golden Growler come before the door, which prompted her to raise her hands. Golden Growler's eyes looked very mad. It opened its mouth to summon the golden door and placed it across the Geno Hall's doors. No one had seen this before. A door appeared in front of the Geno Hall's doors. This had never happened before. Golden Growler quietly growled. The golden door slightly opened. Shiny gold light came out from within it. The light spilled across the god light coming out from the open Geno Hall doors. Huh? The Geno Hall's door shadows seemed surprised. The raised hand was placed down. She looked at the golden door and suddenly said, "You passed." After that, the light shadow entered the god light and vanished. Roar! Golden Growler looked at Han's son and roared before walking toward the Geno Hall's doors. Han's son understood what Golden Growler was saying. It was saying, "I will wait for you there." He watched Golden Growler walk beyond the Geno Hall's doors and slowly disappear with the Geno Hall. It faded from space, leaving Han's son with mixed emotions. The people in the universe did not know what to think. Golden Growler had entered the Geno Hall in a surprising way, and the person inside the Geno Hall did not do anything. It looked as if the golden door had stopped it. The ancient water god had attempted to fight it, but he was destroyed by a hand. Golden Growler used his golden door like a ticket to enter. The treatment was certainly different. It is easy to go in, but whether or not he comes out is the big question, Sky Palace leader said with a sigh. No matter what happens, entering means he stands a chance, the woman said. That is better than no chance at all. Little mountain leader, you must come back alive. The green-haired beast eyes were floating with light. Han's son watched the Geno Hall disappear. He turned away and wanted to leave. Suddenly the Geno God list shone. All the names of the Geno God list were lighting up with a holy god light. At the same time, a video flashed on the Geno God list. It was playing back the best scenes of the top 100 fights inside the space battlegrounds. The first 100 Xenogeneics appeared. The fights of the first 100 warriors were being shown. Han Sun appeared at the end. He was in first place, so the final image displayed him. It was a moment that was going to stand for all eternity. In the next second, the Geno God list released more holy light. It came down to grace Han Sen's body. His body was showered in holy light. Something suddenly fell from the holy light of the Geno God list. It came flying toward Han Sr. Chapter 2879 Sky God Crown. A white jade crown slowly fell on Han Senator. It landed atop his head. Holy light was spinning from the white jade crown. As the presence came out, it was like a god spirit. A very strange god spirit power came out from the white jade crown. It fell onto Han Sun and turned him into a being who looked like a god spirit. A message came out from the white jade crown. It was in Han Sen's brain. It delivered him many messages. Sky God Crown. Destroyed Class God Personality Armament. Regarding how to use Sky God Crown. It also showed up in Han Sen's head. He was instantly able to understand what power the Sky God Crown had. I see. It does not give me the God personality to become a God spirit. It uses Sky God Crown's power to give me the authority of coming in and out of the Geno Hall like a God spirit. Han Sun understood how he was supposed to use the Sky God Crown. He now knew what was going on. After figuring it out, Han Sun felt rather angry, because every being in the top 100 had a true God weapon. A God personality armament was just like a true God class weapon. Han Sun didn't feel as if there was much difference between the Sky Vine Radish God Lance and the Shield of the Medusa's Gaze. They were practically the same level. He had earned first place, but he had only earned a God personality armament. Aside from enabling him to enter the Geno Hall, it did nothing. It did not seem particularly useful. While Han Sun was still thinking, the Geno God list started to move. It teleported him back to the Extreme King Garden. Congratulations. I was not expecting you to be number 1, God said with a smile. You are being too cheap, Han Sun complained. Why does the number 1 spot only earn a God personality armament? Second and third earned a God personality armament too, and the first received the same. That is not supposed to be the ultimate prize for number 1, right? God looked at him with disdain as he said, You have no idea of the luck you have now. They are destroyed class God personality armaments, just like your Sky Vine Radish God Lance. This God personality armament is destroyed class as well, but it is not the same. Plus, the Sky God Crown grants you passage into the Geno Hall. Do you know how many elites have craved that power across all of time? What is the level of the God personality armaments level? Is the destroyed class stronger than the destroyed class? Han Sun quickly asked. You will know once you enter the Geno Hall, God said with a smile. Your little doggy went there. Are you not going to go take a look? Cough. I am busy. I am not going yet. Han Sun then asked. Is it dangerous in the Geno Hall? With my current might, do you think I will end up in danger if I stay there for a while? I do not know. God was being tight-lipped about Han Sen's fear. He ignored him and stopped answering his questions. Han Sun wanted to go to the Geno Hall to take a look, especially since Little Gold was in there. He wanted to go. Yet, Han Sun still wanted to wait to become a true god before attempting to enter. If he wasn't, he feared he would just become a burden for Little Gold. That would be depressing and possibly make Little Gold's situation worse. I wonder when Wana will wake up. Otherwise, if she keeps staying next to me, suppressing my super god spirit body, I cannot use my super god spirit mode for a long time. It stops me from doing what I want. Han Sun looked at Destiny's Tower, which was where Wana was. She was still fast asleep, but she looked much calmer than usual. Her life force was lively and much better than the last time he saw her. Dollar had been recognized as the top spot on the Geno God list, and Golden Growler had entered the Geno Hall. Plus, Dollar and Golden Growler had a strange encounter. It made the Geno God list fight the topic of many conversations. For a long time, the entire universe talked about them. Dollar and Golden Growler's name became famous across the universe. Many big races tried investigating where dollar came from, which included Empty Mountain. No progress was made. No one was able to figure out where the elusive dollar had come from. No one was able to figure out anything more about the strange title of human, either. Some old antiques knew about the existence of humans, but dollar exuded the presence of a xenogeniac. He was different from the blue-blooded humans. They were not of the same race. From what they had seen, the Geno God list did have a human fighter, but he was not like dollar. That human was Lu Lai, and he was ranked 4th. How do I go to the Buddha without anyone noticing me? Han Sun had been killing xenogeniacs in the 9 Defense Palace to earn genes, but there were not many high-level xenogeniacs in the palace. Han Sun had to eat butterfly-class xenogeniacs to increase his genes, so his level-up progress was slow. He wanted to go to the Buddha to get his knife back. He also wanted to get his revenge on Burning Lamp, who had turned him into an ant and harmed Isha. When he went back to the Buddha, he would use his Han Sun identity. He was going to get proper revenge. With Dollar's name, even if he took the knife back, it would be pointless. Now that he had God next to him, if he was to become Han Sun, he would be exposed. He did not want that to happen. Han Sun kept thinking of a way to solve this, but he came up empty. God seemed fairly ordinary and more like an uncle. He seemed to know a lot of things most of the time, but he also seemed weaker than very high-level gods, such as King Jun. Even so, the pressure Han Sun felt was greater than with King Jun. Han Sun was a bit worried, so he did not dare do too much. While Han Sun was thinking about how to get rid of God, God approached him and said, "I am leaving for a while." Han Sun almost thought it was because he had been able to read his mind, and that was why he said it. "That is a shame," Han Sun replied. "I would like to play more rounds of chess with you." "It is fine," God said with a laugh. "I am going back to do something. I will be back in a few days." "Why are you in so much of a rush? What can be more important than playing chess?" Han Sun feigned surprise. "The Geno Hall has a new member, so I am going to take a look," God casually said. "Are you visiting Golden Growler?" Han Sun's heart sank. He did not think getting watched by God was a good thing. "It is just an average expected procedure," God said with a laugh. "Since I know you, if he is in any danger, I will make sure to inform you." "Thanks a lot." Although Han Sun said that, he thought there was something wrong. He thought, is he going to convince Little Gold to push me to enter the Geno Hall? Chapter 2880 Ruins that shouldn't exist. After God said he was leaving, he left. Han Sun was a little worried. He thought Little Gold might get bullied because of his relationship with God. Han Sun knew there was no point in worrying. He just wanted to quickly level up, become true God, and enter the Geno Hall. He researched ways he might infiltrate the Buddha. He was trying to get the knife back and revenge on Burning Lamp. The knife's power would be a big boon to Han Senator. It was a weapon designed to help weaker beings wins. He thought it might prove useful inside the Geno Hall. From the data Han Sun had collected, the elites who had entered the Geno Hall throughout history all had a true God weapon. Plus, from Han Sun's experience battling God spirits, true God class power did affect the God spirits. Any power below true God class did not do any damage to the gods. They were almost entirely useless. That was why Han Sun wanted to become true God class first. It would enable him to enter the Geno Hall. One of the sheep heads on the 4-sheep cube leads to where horizontal evil was suppressed. One of them goes to God's farm, and another leads to a place where many scary xenogeniacs were gathered. I wonder where the last place goes. If I use the 4-sheep cube to teleport and travel with Han Sun's identity, I do not think even God could find me. After Han Sun thought of that, he decided to do it. In the past, he was a bit scared of where the 4-sheep cube sent him to. With his current level of power, he was no weaker than a true God class. Plus, he had space teleportation, so he did not have to worry too much. Han Sun had not wanted to use space teleportation before, because he was afraid God had a way to track his space teleportation. For Sheep Cube's teleportation, however, was almost untraceable. Han Sun knew the way it teleported him was different from any other kind of teleportation power. It was difficult to break. Hansen only needed the 4-sheep cube teleportation power to slip away. Afterward, he would be able to get rid of his xenogenic mode and look like Han Sun again. No one was going to think he was Dollar. Then, he would use space teleportation to go wherever he wanted. Han Sun went to the 9 Defense Palace and selected a room that had no xenogenic in it. After he pressed the restrictions, he used his Dongxian aura to hide all of the spinning universal cogwheels. He then took out his 4-sheep cube and activated the final sheep head. The black and white goldfish spun fast. They brought Han Sun into the 4-sheep cube. When he crawled outside of the 4-sheep cube again, he was no longer in his xenogenic mode. He looked like Han Sun again. Han Sun was very alert. He looked around, but he did not see any scary xenogenics. All he saw was a void in space. Not far from it, he saw a palace that was bigger than a star. That palace was like a big black beast lurking in space. It was made of metal and looked horrendously cold. The palace also looked like it was in disarray. Much of it had crumbled. It looked a little old. It was like a junkyard for machines. Han Sun did not sense any creatures nearby, so he flew toward the palace. He wanted to see what sort of place it was. Even if he used galaxy teleportation, he needed to know in which direction to head. Right now, he had no idea where in the universe he was. Han Sun quickly approached the metal palace. When he had a closer look at it, the place looked broken. Many giant cracks webbed around the metal construct. It was like the claws of some giant beast had ripped it. Luckily, the door of the metal palace was complete. Han Sun saw 2 words written there. Metal Temple. Temple? Does that mean this place is somewhere inside the Geno Hall? Han Sun was shocked. He had not expected it to be a temple. Han Sun thought, no way. This is the universe. It is different from the space where Sky Vine Radish Temple was. Perhaps I have thought too much. Perhaps this metal temple is not that kind of temple. He used the Dongxian aura to scan the metal temple. If this place was that sort of temple, there was sure to be a god spirit on the inside. Han Sun felt instantly relieved. He used his Dongxian aura to scan the temple. He did not find any life forces there, or see signs of any creature that resembled a god spirit. That is what I am talking about. It cannot be that kind of temple. Han Sun pushed the door and walked into the metal temple. There was a lot of broken metal inside. The palace was bigger than a planet. He was not able to see a complete portion of the building. It was hard to imagine what kind of battle had taken place there to render a palace into that kind of state. Han Sun kept flying and examining the place. Since the temple was so damaged, it was hard to tell what many of the things once were. The shape of the building was also very weird. It was different from the other kind of buildings Han Sun had seen. Suddenly Han Sun saw something. It made his expression change. In the fallen metal ruins, Han Sun saw a partially visible god altar. The altar looked similar to the ones he had seen in the Sky Vine Radish Temple. It was the altar that was able to revive Sky Vine Radish. Han Sun waved his hands and moved all of the metal scraps away. The altar was now easier to see. It was the same as what Han Sun had seen inside Sky Vine Radish Temple. No matter the texture, the symbols, or stylings, it was the same. Is this place really a temple? How could a temple look so destroyed? Plus, it is in the universe. I thought the temples were only inside the Geno Hall. Han Sun had a puzzled expression. He moved the stuff around in hopes of finding some useful leads. Han Sun quickly noticed that the altar was not complete. Some sort of power had broken it. What is going on here? A temple was destroyed. Who had the power to bring a temple into the universe and then destroy it? While Han Sun pondered this, he sensed some movement from afar. Han Sun's heart jumped. He put away his presents and hid behind a broken metal wall. Not long later, Han Sun sensed a creature approaching the metal temple. It was standing at the door where it said, Metal Temple. The creature was staring at those 2 words. Han Sun used his Dongxian aura to watch. He discovered that it was a man with a lot of white hair. But he was very strange. Although he had white hair, he did not look old. He was a middle-aged man with a fair aura about him. The man stared at the metal temple for a while. He sighed, said, It has been many years. I am finally back. Chapter 2881 Fixing the Altar. Hansen thought. Tai? Is that the white-haired Tai Bao met? Or is it the Tai from the scroll? Is it the one that killed a god? Tai turned his head. He walked into the metal temple and headed for the metal altar. Tai was looking at the altar as he coldly said, "Since you are here, why bother hiding?" Hansen was shocked. He did not expect to be discovered so soon. Suddenly someone flashed. He saw another shadow appear next to the altar. King Jun. When Hansen saw the person's shape, he was given a fright. He did not expect to see Sky God King Jun there. Is this metal temple King Jun's temple? No way. King Jun is a fire element god spirit. He does not really associate himself with metal. Plus the altar is broken. I do not think anything good happened to the god spirit that once resided here. Hansen was thinking about many things. Tai, I never thought you would make it back alive, King Jun coldly said. Tai looked at King Jun and replied, I do not care if I live or if I die. But you? You care for your life so much, yet you risk entry into the universe. Are you not afraid of being able to return to your own temple? King Jun looked at him with disdain and asked, Do you think you are still in the sacred era? The people in the universe are lucky to keep themselves alive. Why would they come and seek trouble from me? At this time, no matter how bad things become, there are still God sadnesses, right? Tai asked with a laugh. King Jun's expression was cold. He grunted. Tai, Nine-Night God was murdered inside a temple, and that thing was stolen. Was it you? I was just taking back what belonged to me, Tai icily replied. Did you not know that thing was so important to me? King Jun angrily asked. I know it is. Tai nodded. Why would you take it if you knew? King Jun harshly asked. Tai calmly looked at King Jun said, It does not matter to me if it is important to you. Fine. 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 Tai, are you really going to make yourself my enemy? It looked as if King Jun's face was turning green. He was so angry that he laughed. When you become Sky God King Jun, you and I will not be friends. There will be no favors owed between us, so there will be no breaking up. Tai looked like he did not care. Fine. 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 If you ever find yourself in trouble, I will sit back and watch. King Jun was furious. He waved his sleeves and left. He instantly disappeared. Tai remained in front of the altar, but he did not speak. After a while he said, It must be uncomfortable hiding there. You should come on out. Hansen thought there must have been another creature about. He looked around, but no one else appeared. I am talking about you. Who are you looking for? Tai's expression looked a bit weird. He looked at the wall Hansen was hiding behind. Hansen knew Tai must have discovered his location. He coughed and stepped out from the broken wall. He said, I just did not want to disturb you and Sky God King Jun's discussion. I did not mean to eavesdrop. You were here before me, Tai said with a nod. I know you weren't eavesdropping. Hansen was shocked. He was surprised Tai had discovered him already. The skill to hide his presence did not work. Crystallizer. Tai looked at Hansen with interest. Yes. Hansen nodded. After checking him out, Tai said, No. You are not a crystallizer. You are a human. Hansen was shocked. Even God believed he was a crystallizer. Yet Tai believed he was human. Something had to be going on. What do you mean? Hansen asked with a frown. Led Tai laughed. I did not expect humans to come crawling out of the sanctuary after my brief nap. It seems that it was worth the sacred leader's effort way back then. What do humans have to do with sacred leader? Hansen was stunned. He remembered humans were a part of the crystallizer, but he did not think they had a connection to sacred leader. If they were related, crystallizers would have taken over sacred leader's shelters. Tai knew about the sanctuaries, so he knew humans came from the sanctuaries. It also did not seem as if he was lying. Tai laughed but did not answer. He turned around and looked at the broken altar. Can you help me? I am so weak. I cannot help you. Tai looked weird. Hansen did not want to make promises, but he wanted to learn secrets about the humans from Tai. He did not really want to refuse outright. It is nothing too difficult, Tai said. I want to fix this altar. The materials needed are here already, but we need some pure water to fix it. Can you use a water geno art? I can use a water geno art or two. But why are you fixing the altar? Hansun was confused. He did not understand Tai. Hearing him talk with King Jun, Tai did not seem to be on good terms with Sky God King Jun. But he also knew about Sacred Leader and the sanctuaries. Now he wanted to fix the altar. Hansun could not tell which side he might ultimately be serving. King Jun had said he entered a temple and killed a god spirit. Hansun was pretty convinced that Tai was the godslayer Tai from the scroll. Tai did not answer Han Senator. He removed many materials from the broken altar. He flicked his fingers. A white fire descended onto the altar. The white fire burned the entire altar. Flames enveloped the altar. Hansun stood next to the altar, but he could not feel the fire's heat. The altar's materials turned into juice, which filled up the cracks inside the altar. The altar was burning like hot red steel. It was half transparent. The melted juice flowed into the altar. The cracks inside the altar filled up and slowly vanished. Not long after, it looked like a perfect altar but was crystallized. It was like a crystal. Help me out with the water, Tai coldly said. Hansun's heart jumped. He followed Tai's instructions and used a water geno art. He generated a lot of water to spray the altar. The water was poured on the altar. Before it touched the altar, the water was vaporized. We need more to cool the whole altar down, Tai said. Hansun increased his power. He got more water to hit the altar. Hansun tried his hardest, but the water was unable to douse the altar. Despite being like the tide, the water was vaporized in the air. Very powerful Tai. Now, Hansun had a better understanding of how scary Tai's fire power was. Since Hansun had already committed, he was not going to give up. He clutched his ancient water god origin and simulated ancient water god's presence. He then fired water at the altar. Chi! The water hit the altar. White smoke rose from the altar. The burning, crystal-looking altar was stone again. Chapter 2882 Meeting a person again. The altar was broken, but it no longer had any cracks. It had recovered and looked like new. There was still no god light or god spirit spawning on the altar. Thank you so much, little brother. This is your reward. I trust we will meet again. Tai threw something to Hansun as he walked to the altar. Hansun watched the altar shine with a bright light. The light was spreading everywhere. Wherever the godlight touched, the broken metal buildings appeared to rewind. All the broken pieces rose up and flew backward. The palace was repairing itself. Suddenly, the entire temple had a bunch of metal pieces flying everywhere. All of the buildings, statues, and tools were recovering, as if they were rewinding. Due to the power of the altar, the entire temple started to tear space. It was heading into space. Hansun did not dare follow the temple into space. He exited the temple and watched it recover from outside. When the temple was 70% to 80% recovered, Hansun was able to see that the structure of the temple was in the image of a large, metal bird. The big metal bird coldly looked across the universe. It gave people the feeling it would shake its wings and fly for 9 nights. The metal giant bird kind of looked like the sun gold bird Hansun had killed before. But it was a little bit different. The temple was becoming more and more complete, and it was going into space. It suddenly disappeared. Hansun realized that he had not asked Tai any of the questions he wanted to ask. He lowered his head and looked into his hands. The thing Tai had thrown him was like an egg. It was the size of an egg too. It looked rather heavy and had a metallic sheen to it. What the hell? He gave me an egg. Am I supposed to cook it? Hansun felt depressed. He did not know the egg's purpose. Hansun used the Dongxian aura to look. He did not see a life force in the egg. It looked like a small art piece that was built from metal. I have no idea what the hell Tai is up to. He is so mysterious. He can open the temple, so there is a 90% chance he is the god spirit of this temple. After looking at his face, he did not seem to look like a god spirit. This is so weird. Hansun did not understand, so he stopped trying to think about it. He put the metal egg away, looked around. He still did not understand which direction to head, so he randomly used galaxy teleportation. He hoped he would be lucky enough to find a place with people in it. At least, They might be able to confirm his location. Because he was unable to locate his position, galaxy teleportation was dangerous. If Han's son randomly teleported into a place, he might end up in the giant mouth of some random beast. He might have even ended up inside a hot pot. The worst thing would have been him teleporting into a knife, which would stick in him and cause injuries. Fortunately, Han's son's body was strong. Although it would likely not hurt him, Han's son was still going to be careful. After teleporting, Han's son realized that his body was in water. The water was very clean but also very shallow. He saw some jade stairs. He was able to tell that he was in a spring or swimming pool. Han's son stood up. His chest was above the water. He looked around. He was in a big fountain in the center of a plaza. Han's son was standing in the fountain. A group of boys and girls looked at him with shock. He looked very strange. Feather. Han's son noticed the wings on the backs of the boys and girls. It was a clear indicator that they belonged to the feather. After Kong Fei made the feather a lower race, Han's son cared little for their existence. He had not expected galaxy teleportation to take him to a territory that belonged to the feather. This place cannot be holy heaven, can it? Han's son looked around. He noticed he was not in a xenogenic space. He was just on a normal planet. Because Han's son did not care. He did not even know if holy heaven belonged to the feather. After all, they had become a lower race. If the feather wanted to keep holy heaven, which was a large xenogenic space, it would be difficult. Han's son emerged from the fountain and smiled at a young feather woman. Excuse me, what is this place? This is Songfeather Planet, the feather girl replied with shock. Who are you? Why are you in the fountain? Han's son had never heard of Songfeather Planet before, but there was evidence of advanced technology there. Han's son got out his phone and connected to the internet. He quickly located his position. He learned that he was on a small planet that was not too far from the Big Barren systems. Han's son was in the Big Barren systems. The last sheep head of the 4-sheep cube was pointing at the Big Barren systems. Han's son felt weird. It seemed to be a different Big Barren system. It should have been further. I thought it was someone so brave daring to enter my Songfeather Planet. Han's son suddenly heard someone laughing from far away. He looked in that direction and was instantly happy. He said, Brother Fei. The man smiled evilly. He approached Han's senator. It was Kong Fei, who Han's son had not seen for a very long time. He did not expect to see him on the border of a planet. Time is weird, Kong Fei said with a sigh. When I first met you, you were so weak that you could not even talk. I was afraid I could kill you so easily. Now you are a deified elite. Brother Fei, why are you here? Han's son was very curious. Kong Fei had the biggest grudge with the feather. Everyone knew that. Yet this place had many feathers and Kong Fei was still living there. That was surprising. Come. We do not have xenogenics in the universe, but we have drinks. Kong Fei did not answer. He led the way forward. Many feathers greeted and smiled at him. They always referred to him as Brother Fei. Han's son quickly noticed the feather there were all young, and many of them weren't pure feathers. There were many tall trees. There were houses nestled atop the trees. Kong Fei lived inside one such treehouse. He casually sat on the wooden floor and tossed Han's son a drink. He held the bottle and had a swig. The feather became a lower race, and they could not keep holy heaven. These are the orphans I collected after the battle. Han's son did not know how to answer him. Kong Fei fought for the rights of himself and his family. He had only managed to knock the feather down from their perch as one of the higher races. He did not kill them all. That was very kind of him. Yet he still hadn't been able to avoid innocent lives being taken. It was hard to say who was in the wrong or right. He could only say that in that big era one could not control fate. It was all in the era's waves. Chapter 2883 The Decision to Light a Lantern. I am finally back. Home is good. Han's son returned home. He took a deep breath and accepted the heartwarming fragrance of home. Dad! Upon seeing Han's son, Linger ran over to him in search of a hug. Linger! Good Linger! Let Dad kiss you. Han's son picked up Linger and kissed her on the head. He rubbed her face and commented on how spongy her cheeks felt. You remembered to come back. If you were not yet back, Linger was going to forget what you looked like. Ji Yanran rolled her eyes at Han. Senator Han Sun picked up Linger. He used his nose to rub hers as he said, Linger would not forget Dad. Isn't that right? Linger's eyes were wide open as she replied, Linger would never forget Dad, and Dad would never forget Linger. Right. Han Sun held Linger and said, Of course not. Linger is Daddy's baby. Daddy can forget everyone except for Linger. Linger was holding Han Sen's neck. With a squeaky voice she asked, Linger and Daddy will be together forever, right? Of course. Han Sen nodded. Kindergarten is on a break. Mother said Linger can go play. Linger blinked and asked, Can you take me to the big universe to play? What? Han Sun was surprised. It was now revealed that she was being so nice solely for the reason of Han Sun taking her out. Han Sun sighed. If this was before, he would have hesitated and outright refused to take Linger to the big universe. It was too dangerous. Now, Han Sun had the power to protect himself, so he had the option to consider it. If there is no danger, you should take her, said Ji Yanran, who was nearby. The teacher gave her a lot of homework that requires the assistance of a parent. You never spend time with her. Take this as a trip to finish the homework. Why not? Out there, I have a place to stay. Bower and Little Red Bird are there. I bet they miss Linger a lot. Han Sun nodded. He looked at Ji Yanran and asked, Are you coming with us? I am not going, Ji Yanran said. Recently, I have been researching Xianmen's skills. I have discovered something interesting. I want to achieve something with the Xianmen skills first. Then I will take Linger to the universe. I will be living there from now on. Han Sun was surprised. Xianmen's skills were a bit complicated, and more than a bit boring. It was difficult for ordinary people to learn, and the results were never obvious. It was a skill that took a long time to learn. He was surprised to hear that Ji Yanran was interested in learning a Xianmen skill. The next morning, Han Sun took Linger with him on his teleportation back to the universe. He said goodbye to Kong Fei, and used galaxy teleportation to return to Space Garden. Linger was very good at adjusting. The universe's powerful pressure did not affect her. She was able to adjust to its environment pretty quickly. It was surprising. How powerful is Linger's body? When I just leveled up and came here, it took me a while to adjust to the pressure of this universe. Han Sun looked at Linger with a strange expression. She was merrily jumping around. Her two pigtails were swinging. Han Sun was feeling cocky and said, I cannot blame her. After all, her daddy is the one and only Han Sr. The holy baby was released by Han Sun again. With a look of depression, he waddled over to sit next to him. There were not many changes in Space Garden, but there were many changes in the people there. Bower, Little Red Bird, Little Angel Zero, Huang Fujing, Qin Xian, Tang Junliu, and Wang Yuhang were all there. Most importantly, many people had already used the resources of Space Garden to become deified class. Aside from the few that showed up on the Geno God list, Moment Queen and Little Star were deified too. This is all because of Little Red Bird, Wang Yuhang excitedly said. If it was not for him, we would not be able to start hunting plant xenogeneics so fast. We would not have as much Geno fluid to use. By the way, this is such a great place. Deified xenogeneic plants are all over the place. Bower pulled Linger away to play elsewhere. Little Red Bird shook its butt and followed from behind. After following them for a bit, it went back. It flapped its wings and flew around Han Senator. It circled him a few times. It kept looking at him. It seemed as if he was searching for something. Are you looking for this? Han Sen's heart jumped. He brought out the metal egg that Tai Yi had given to him. Little Red Bird was excited and screamed. It flew over to Han Sun and opened its mouth, obviously wanting to eat the metal egg. I cannot give this to you yet. Han Sun smiled and put the egg back. Little Red Bird was disappointed. He was not going to allow Little Red Bird to gobble it up before he figured out what the little metal egg did. Space Garden was not very big, right? They were mostly human creatures and spirits there. Their powers were not bad. Han Sun thought. It looks like we can bring more interesting guys here. Space Garden has so many resources now. I can bring a few hundred more people, and we'll still be fine. The next place Han Sun planned on going to was the realm of the Buddha. He was still hesitant about choosing whether or not to challenge the Buddha and knock them down from being one of the higher races, or just going to their lands and stealing the knife back. Taking down the Buddha was the best choice, but Han's son did not want to do it as a human. If he used his crystallizer's name, he did not know if humans would benefit from the act. Ordinarily, after a race's lantern was lit, the creatures of the same race would receive a buff via the lantern. The genes in their bodies increased. Han's son and the others were not pure crystallizers. If he used the name of the crystallizers to light up a lantern, he did not know what the outcome might be. So far, the name of the crystallizers to light up the lantern might yield better results, Wang Yuhang said. Things about humans should not be too obvious. Plus, the ranking of the Buddha is low. It is not worth risking humans to take. Everyone thought using the name of the crystallizers to fight the Buddha was better. After seeing the Geno God list, they knew their powers were much weaker than others in the universe. It was not enough for them to keep a grip on their throne. All right. Hansen nodded. He planned on using Dollar's identity for humans to light up a lantern. To do that, he was not going to select a low-tier race to target. He was going to make sure that when the humans were ready to make themselves known to the universe, they would immediately get into the top 5. Shi Qingqing, Qin Xian, and Han Sun were talking about the details. They confirmed that they would take down the Buddha as crystallizers and replace the lantern. Bauer, you take good care of Linger. Dad has some things to do. Han Sun gave Linger to Bauer. He used galaxy teleportation to go where the Buddha were. Upon seeing Han Sun leave, Holy Baby looked very happy and had a murderous expression. He walked over to Bauer and Linger, who were playing together. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.